Chapter 3463. Self-created cultivation method. It's actually the primordial stone. You actually have such a thing on you. It's really unbelievable. The possessor trembled with excitement, and greed appeared in his eyes. He stretched out his hand toward the floating primordial stone and said excitedly, "This primordial stone is mine." At this moment, the possessor was completely swayed by his excitement. The primordial stone was only a legend in the outer regions. It was a supreme treasure that could cause rivers of blood to flow. He didn't expect to encounter it. Splat! The possessor's right hand had just reached out, and the moment it touched the purple lake, his right hand exploded. Then, countless purple water pillars rose up from the calm purple lake and swept out like lightning, instantly enveloping the powerhouse who had taken over the body. The possessor woke up and roared angrily. The power of his divine sense exploded, wanting to destroy the surrounding purple water pillars. But very soon, he was disappointed. This purple lake contained a mysterious power, and he was actually unable to break free from the purple lake. He could only watch as he was dragged by the water column into the depths of the purple lake. Splash! The possessor's divine sense was pulled into the water and sank into the depths of the purple lake. Then, the purple lake returned to its calm state. Zhuowen watched all this silently, his eyes filled with shock. The possessor, who was so powerful and almost destroyed his divine sense, was actually killed by the purple lake in an instant. Zhuowen looked at the primordial stone floating above the center of the purple lake, and his eyes were filled with awe. This mysterious primordial stone actually had such terrifying power. The possessor was a heaven-breaking realm cultivator, but in front of this primordial stone, he was as weak as a clay chicken. Then dense purple characters surged out from the primordial stone and fell into the purple lake. Then the purple lake continued to expand and instantly drowned Zhuowen's entire spiritual world. To be more precise, Zhuowen's spiritual world had been replaced by the purple lake, and the purple lake was filled with purple characters. These characters were ancient and were mysterious characters that didn't belong to this starry sky. These mysterious characters flowed in the purple lake, emitting a hazy purple light, like tadpoles made of purple jade. Zhuowen recognized these words. They were the first part of the primordial grand mist technique. Back then, he had studied the first part of the earth art through the Tai word stone. He knew that the cultivation base of this art had to be at the Heaven Breaker realm, and it could only be cultivated up to the Heaven Breaker 6 transformations. It was an incomplete art. At that time, Zhuowen had already realized how extraordinary this cultivation method was. If he could cultivate it, he would definitely soar to the heavens. But now, because of the moment of life and death, the supreme word stone had actually fused with his divine sense. He discovered that his divine sense had been elevated to a higher level and had undergone an earth-shattering transformation. Previously, Zhuowen's divine sense had already become extremely powerful after being nurtured by the Panga banner. It was comparable to the divine sense of a half-step heaven-crushing cultivator at the second blight. But now, because of the fusion with the supreme word stone, his spirit had really soared. It had at least reached the peak stage of the fifth heaven's blight, and was not far from the strength of a true heaven-shattering tier elite spirit. Moreover, Zhuowen also discovered that the mysterious words in the supreme word stone had fused with his divine sense violet lake. He actually completely comprehended the first part of the primordial grand mist technique in an instant. He was clear that as long as his cultivation base could successfully break through to the Heaven Breaker realm, cultivating the primordial grand mist technique would immediately reach the initial stage, and his strength would far surpass ordinary heaven-shattering tier elites. And at this moment, his comprehension ability reached an unprecedented height under the boost of the mysterious words. The primordial grand mist technique has already completely fused with my divine sense and memories. Although I can't cultivate this kind of cultivation method now, I can refer to this part of the primordial grand mist technique and create a heaven-shattering cultivation method that surpasses the starry skies of the lower realm. Zhuowen's eyes were filled with understanding. The level of the primordial grand mist technique was really too high, far surpassing ordinary, heaven-shattering cultivation methods. It was profound and obscure, and its might was enormous. Now that he had completely comprehended this cultivation method, he was confident that he could refer to the primordial grand mist technique and create a heaven-shattering cultivation method that was suitable for him. He could cultivate the cultivation method he created and quickly advance to the heaven-shattering tier. At this moment, Zhuowen was sitting cross-legged on the island in the middle of the lake. His body emitted a purple glow, mysterious and serene. Xiao He, who was originally worried about Zhuowen, saw Zhuowen sit up energetically and immediately turned her tears into laughter. She said loudly to herself, "This brat's life is as tough as a cockroach, as expected. He won't die so easily." Although Xiao He's mouth was still so venomous, she was very happy to see that Zhuowen was fine. Zhuowen sat for 3 days and 3 nights. The purple glow around his body became more and more intense, and Zhuowen's figure appeared in the purple lake of his divine sense, continuously practicing some kind of cultivation method. At this moment, Zhuowen's comprehension ability underwent a transformation, and he fell into an unprecedented state of enlightenment. The speed at which he practiced the cultivation method was also very fast. 1 month, 2 months, half a year passed, and the seated Zhuowen finally opened his eyes. His eyes emitted a purple glow, and then he took out a jade scroll. There was no content in this jade scroll. He used his mind as a pen and began to continuously inscribe an extremely profound and obscure cultivation method on the jade scroll. Moreover, as he continued to inscribe, the jade scroll actually seemed to come alive, emitting a boundless aura of Tao that overflowed in all directions. The scene was extremely shocking, and its aura was extremely vast. This brat is creating his own cultivation method. Xiao He quickly noticed Zhuowen's abnormal state and saw that Zhuowen was actually rapidly inscribing, and she could tell at a glance what Zhuowen's intentions were. Xiao He was stunned. For cultivators who had cultivated to Zhuowen's level, creating their own cultivation method was not surprising. But generally, the highest level of self-created cultivation method was around the level of their current cultivation level, and it was absolutely impossible to create a cultivation method that was higher than their own cultivation level. But now, the cultivation method that Zhuowen was inscribing was accompanied by the appearance of a strange phenomenon. This was definitely not an ordinary cultivation method, and from the powerful aura emitted by the cultivation method, it could be seen that this cultivation method that Zhuowen had created was very impressive. Zhuowen spent a total of 10 days and 10 nights inscribing. The moment Zhuowen finished the last stroke, his mind was completely exhausted, and he completely fainted. However, at the moment when he fainted, Zhuowen felt that his cultivation level had integrated at this moment, and he naturally broke through to the late stage of the immortal ascension realm. The moment the cultivation method was completed, all kinds of unbelievable phenomena appeared in the sky, and thunder rumbled as if a heavenly tribulation was about to descend. Damn! What kind of cultivation method is this? The moment it's created, even the heavens are going to be angry. Xiao He was completely shocked after seeing that Zhuowen had fainted. She hurriedly brought Zhuowen into the pavilion on the island in the middle of the lake to cultivate. The jade scroll was full of spirituality, and it automatically fell into Zhuowen's chest and even rubbed against Zhuowen intimately. Did it really become a spirit? Chapter 3464. Primordial Mantra Zhuowen slowly woke up and found himself lying on a luxurious bed. He slowly sat up and slapped his forehead. "Kid, you're finally awake." Xiaohe appeared beside Zhuowen's bed and sized up Zhuowen. After confirming that Zhuowen was indeed fine, a trace of relief appeared in her eyes. Zhuowen shook his head and immediately noticed a jade scroll in front of his chest. "This is the cultivation technique you created yourself. Kid, what kind of medicine did you take before? You actually created your own cultivation technique, and this cultivation technique of yours actually caused a phenomenon of heaven and earth. What kind of cultivation technique is this? It's so heaven-defying." Xiaohe was very curious, and she couldn't help but ask as she sized up the jade scroll in Zhuowen's hand. Zhuowen browsed through the contents of the jade scroll, and his eyes flashed as he said in a deep voice, "This cultivation technique will be called the primordial mantra, and it's a heaven-crushing technique. If you cultivate this cultivation technique, you'll be able to break through the heavens." This cultivation technique was created with reference to the ancient primordial mantra, so it was reasonable for Zhuowen to name it the primordial mantra. "What? You've actually created a heaven-breaker cultivation technique. Are you sure you're not joking with me?" Xiaohe exclaimed in surprise. Zhuowen didn't explain, and he tossed the jade scroll to Xiaohe. The latter browsed through it, and the more she read, the more shocked she became. In the end, she returned the jade scroll to Zhuowen and sighed softly. "I really didn't expect that you actually created a heaven-crushing technique. This cultivation technique can cultivate both the physical body and the divine sense. Xiaohe, although you're an artifact spirit, you can also cultivate it," Zhuowen said with a smile. Xiaohe was stunned, and then he excitedly grabbed the jade slip and said, "Then I'll accept it. If I'm able to cultivate this cultivation technique of yours, then wouldn't this dragon, Lord, be able to break through the heavens very quickly as well?" Zhuowen smiled and nodded. When he had first created this cultivation technique, he had already considered both the physical body and the divine sense. Thus, he had created the primordial mantra, so that both the divine sense and the physical body could cultivate it. Zhuowen could predict that if he continued to cultivate the primordial mantra, his divine sense would quickly transform. And at that time, his divine sense would definitely break through to the heaven-crushing technique mantra. "Oh, Xiaohe, give a copy of the primordial mantra and give it to the Ryuka. Let the members of the Long family cultivate this primordial mantra." After Zhuowen, and Zhuowen's translation as translation, and Xiaohe translation mantra translation. Translation is translation is translation translation is translation. Translation is translation. Lu Yas translation as on translation is translation as translations translation. Translation is I'm actually not affected by the pressure. Zhuowen's eyes suddenly flashed. He realized that when the pressure fell on him, it was mostly on his avatar. His main body didn't react at all. Zhuowen kept his doppelganger into his great world, leaving only his true body outside. It really didn't affect me at all. When only his original body was left, Zhuowen found that his whole body was relaxed, and the pressure around him did not seem to exist. It had to be known that this pressure was something that had existed in the primordial chaos since ancient times. It represented the might of the primordial chaos. However, his true body of the human race wasn't affected at all. This had Zhuowen both pleasantly surprised and bewildered. Could it be because my human true body doesn't have a Tao root? Zhuowen felt that the possibility of this conjecture was very high. In the starry sky of the lower realms, a cultivator without a Tao root was utterly incapable of attaining the Tao, let alone breaking through the heavens. For countless years, this was an iron rule, but Zhuowen had broken it. With a body without a Tao root, he had successfully attained the Tao and cultivated to his current level. It could be said that it was a miracle. Zhuowen was very excited. If it was because of his supreme Tao root that he wasn't affected by the pressure of the primordial chaos, then didn't that mean that even if he wasn't a supreme expert of the great carefree realm, he could still roam the primordial chaos? However, he knew that his speed was completely incomparable to that of a great carefree realm expert. If he wanted to roam the primordial chaos and reach the 100 domains outside the realm, he would probably need to spend a lot of time. Zhuowen threw away the distracting thoughts in his mind, and his gaze fell on the golden coffin behind the wordless tombstone. This was the coffin of a heaven-breaking realm expert, and the things inside were absolutely priceless, not to mention the things inside the golden coffin. Just the divine swords that formed a circle outside were all heaven-breaking grade divine swords, and their value was immeasurable. Zhuowen passed by the wordless tombstone, his eyes bright and full of expression, and soon arrived in front of the golden coffin. The divine soul of the owner of the golden coffin had already been annihilated by the primordial stone, and the surrounding restriction had long been broken, so the pressure emitted by the golden coffin had already dissipated by most of it. The only thing that still existed here was the powerful pressure that had existed since ancient times in the primordial chaos. And Zhuowen's main body was completely unafraid of the pressure of the primordial chaos. There were a total of 9 divine swords surrounding the golden coffin, and the chains that bound the sword hilts had long been broken. Zhuowen walked to the front of one of the divine swords and discovered that this divine sword's divine splendor was restrained. He grasped the sword hilt and began to pull it out, but soon failed. The divine sword didn't move, and he was shaken by the divine splendor to the point of vomiting blood and retreating. These 9 divine swords are heaven-breaking grade divine weapons after all, but this dragon lord sees that the artifact spirits of these divine swords have already dispersed. Perhaps I can refine these 9 divine swords. Let me give it a try. At that moment, Xiao Hei's voice sounded, and then Xiao Hei flew out of the great world and arrived at the divine sword's surroundings. Xiao Hei spat out a mouthful of lightning and fire energy and began to refine one of the divine swords. Xiao Hei walked the path of artifact cultivators, so perhaps he could really refine this divine sword that was far beyond his level. He ignored the divine swords around him. His cultivation was too weak now, and he couldn't pull out these divine swords at all. According to his estimation, he should have at least the power of the 5th blight to be able to pull out the divine swords here. He came to the side of the golden coffin and directly opened the lid. He saw an extremely handsome blonde man lying quietly inside the coffin. However, the blonde man's face was distorted, and his aura was completely gone. He knew that this person was the one who wanted to possess him. However, his divine soul had already been destroyed, and what laid in the coffin was only an empty shell. Zhuowen unceremoniously threw the blonde man's corpse out of the coffin. To his disappointment, the golden coffin was empty except for the golden-haired man's corpse. Zhuowen suddenly noticed that the golden-haired man he had tossed aside was wearing a golden ring. Zhuowen took off the ring and studied it for a while. He was pleasantly surprised to find that it was a spatial ring. However, there was a powerful restriction on this spatial ring. This restriction was very powerful, and it should be a heaven-breaking grade restriction. However, Zhuowen also discovered that this restriction had been set up for too long and was no longer complete. Zhuowen suppressed the joy in his heart and began to take out the beast bone formation disc, concentrating on breaking the restriction on the surface of the golden ring. He was very clear that if he could break this spatial ring, then he'd be rich. This was the spatial ring of a heaven-breaking elite, and the things inside had to be beyond the starry sky of the lower realm. Chapter 3465. Great Gainshuan sat cross-legged near the golden coffin. He threw out array flags one after another and formed hand seals to break the seal on the golden ring. Although the seal had been damaged for countless years, it was still extraordinary when it was intact. It had surpassed the array formation seals in this part of the universe. Zhuowen's array formation skills were inherited from the Alchemy Array Immortal Lord, and he had even obtained the Alchemy Array Immortal Lord's true record of alchemy arrays. He had already reached the peak of the ascension level. However, it was still very difficult to break the seal on the golden ring. His progress was very slow. However, Zhuowen was never tired of it because he was also comprehending the powerful restrictions as he cracked them open. His level in the Tao of formations was constantly improving and sublimating. Time passed by. Xiao He finally could not withstand the pressure here and entered the great world ahead of time. He studied it for a long time, but still could not refine any of the divine swords around the golden coffin. 3 months later, Zhuowen threw out the last array flag and formed hand seals. Suddenly, the sound of glass shattering could be heard from the golden ring. Zhuowen was delighted. He knew that the seal on the golden ring was about to be broken. In these 3 months, Zhuowen's array formation skills had improved very quickly. He had broken through the shackles of the peak of the ascension level and reached the peak of the ascension level. At this moment, the shattering sound became more and more obvious. Finally, the seal on the golden ring's surface collapsed. Zhuowen was very excited. His shoulders were trembling. He could not wait to open the golden ring. The space inside the golden ring was very large. It was many times larger than ordinary spirit rings in the lower realm. Zhuowen saw many divine herbs in the golden ring. The lowest grade among them was at the peak of the ascension level. There were also many that were half a step into the ascension level. He even saw 9 stalks of divine herbs at the center of the cluster. These 9 stalks of divine herbs spewed out terrifying divine light. The divine light shone brightly and manifested all kinds of strange phenomena, such as divine birds flying in the sky and true dragons roaring in the sky. These are ascension-level divine herbs. Zhuowen's pupils constricted. He recognized the 9 stalks of divine herbs at a glance. He could not hide his excitement. In addition, Zhuowen also found 3 jade slips inside, as well as a pile of crystal stones. These crystals were very rich in energy. Zhuowen also found that these crystals did not contain heavenly Tao energy. Instead, it was a higher type of energy. Zhuowen found that this energy was the same as the mysterious energy in the chaos star. Zhuowen took the 3 jade slips and browsed through them one by one. What surprised him was that one of the jade slips was the names, the grades, names, and attributes of the various divine herbs in the golden ring. Among the pile of divine medicines, he could basically recognize all of the heaven-piercing divine medicines. As for the half-step heaven-piercing divine medicines and heaven-piercing divine medicines, he knew absolutely nothing about them. After he looked at this jade slip, only then did he know that heaven-breaking grade divine medicines were divided into a total of 9 levels, respectively heaven-breaking level 1 to heaven-breaking level 9. And the 9 stalks of divine herbs in the golden ring were only level ascension translation. It looks like the owner of this golden ring is only at the 1st or 2nd heaven-crushing transformation stage. Zhuowen muttered to himself. The 2nd jade slip introduced the 9 divine swords and the golden coffin. To Zhuowen's surprise, the golden coffin was actually a 2nd-order heaven-breaking flight divine artifact. Although it couldn't travel freely in the primal chaos starry sky, it could withstand the pressure of the primal chaos starry sky and fly at low speed. The owner of the golden coffin was seriously injured and on the verge of death. He hid in the coffin and drifted in the chaotic starry sky. Finally, he landed on the half-broken planet near the starry sky of the lower realm where he was. Zhuowen finally knew the name of the 9 divine swords. They were called the 9 Tribulations Sword Formation. This sword formation was formed by 9 level 1 heaven-breaking divine swords. Its power was extremely terrifying. It was said that it was comparable to ordinary level 2 heaven-breaking divine tools. What surprised Zhuowen even more was that the core of the 9 Tribulations sword formation was actually the golden ring in his hand. Refining this golden ring meant that he could completely control the 9 Tribulations sword formation. The third jade slip contained a cultivation technique. Zhuowen had a strange look in his eyes. This cultivation technique was the extreme purple spiritual technique that Bing Hui had given him. Looks like this extreme purple spiritual technique is probably only a basic heaven-breaking cultivation technique in the 100 territories. Zhuowen murmured to himself. Since Bing Hui and the owner of this golden coffin both had this extreme purple spiritual technique, Zhuowen knew that this cultivation technique was very widespread in the 100 territories. And it was not hard to guess that the cultivation technique that was very widespread was only a basic cultivation technique. At the same time, he also knew that the crystals in the golden ring were chaos crystals. Chaos crystals were born in the chaos star. There was an introduction inside. After a cultivator advanced to the heaven-breaking realm, the level of energy would undergo a tremendous change. The energy that heaven-breaking realm cultivators needed to cultivate was no longer the so-called energy of the heavenly Tao. Instead, it was chaotic energy that had more complete laws. And chaotic energy could only be found in the chaos star. Heaven-breaking realm cultivators absorbed chaotic energy and through their dantian transformed it into shattering divine power. Zhuowen also finally knew what the mysterious energy contained in the chaos star was. It was the chaotic energy that was mentioned in the golden ring. Zhuowen placed all the godly medicines and chaos crystals in the golden ring into the great world. This great world was created by Zhuowen, and it evolved continuously as his cultivation level increased. Even in the chaos star, there was probably no such miraculous space like Zhuowen's great world. It was a unique treasure that Zhuowen possessed. After doing all this, Zhuowen started to refine the golden ring, and it took him a whole 3 months to refine the golden ring. When he completely refined the golden ring, the 9 Tribulations sword formation around the golden coffin actually broke out of the ground and entered the golden ring. And what surprised Zhuowen was that with a thought, the golden coffin actually also entered the golden ring. It looked like the golden ring was not only the core of the 9 Tribulations sword formation, but it was also the key to activating the golden coffin. He had gained a lot this time. Zhuowen had long been dissatisfied with the speed of the space-time roulette. In truth, it could have been eliminated long ago. However, Zhuowen had not been able to find a more suitable flight god tool, so he had not replaced the space-time roulette all this time. Now, he had obtained the golden coffin. Although its appearance was very strange, it was at least a level 2 heaven-breaking flying god tool. Its speed was so fast that no one in the entire lower realm could catch up to it. Moreover, Zhuowen also discovered that this golden coffin did not need his divine power to fly. It only needed chaos crystals to fly. Chapter 3466. Tianwu's corpse. Other than that, what made Zhuowen the most bitter was the 9 Tribulations sword formation. He tried to use the golden ring to activate the 9 Tribulations sword formation, but he helplessly found that he could only activate one divine sword. Moreover, this divine sword was merely floating in the air. Stabbing once, it consumed all of Zhuowen's energy, almost causing Zhuowen to faint on the spot. Zhuowen knew that with his current level, it was probably far from enough to use the 9 tribulations sword formation. After doing all this, Zhuowen was not in a hurry to leave. Instead, he sat cross-legged on the spot and started to cultivate the primordial mantra he created. What surprised Zhuowen was that after circulating the primordial chant, his cultivation speed was actually extremely fast. He crazily absorbed the surrounding energy, and his body was like a river that was flowing into the sea, constantly condensing and absorbing this energy. No, I can actually absorb chaotic energy. After cultivating for a while, Zhuowen suddenly woke up. He found that the meridians all over his body were circulating, and what he was absorbing was actually chaotic energy. Moreover, after this chaotic energy entered his body, it was actually transformed by the primordial mantra into an energy of a higher level than heavenly Tao energy. Zhuowen was very clear what this was. It was shattered divine power. Zhuowen was shocked. He had not reached the heaven-breaking realm yet, and not only could he absorb chaotic energy, but he could even produce shattered divine power in his body. This was too inconceivable. Was it because his human original body did not have a Tao root? Or was it because of the primordial mantra? Or was it because of both? Zhuowen did not think so much anymore. He faintly felt that the reason he absorbed chaotic energy in advance was very likely because he did not have a Tao root. After all, the pressure of the chaotic starry sky had no effect on his human original body, so absorbing chaotic energy and transforming it into shattered divine power did not seem particularly inconceivable. Zhuowen started to cultivate crazily. He activated the primordial mantra, and the purple light around his body was dazzling. Like a water pump, he crazily absorbed the chaotic energy around him. After the chaos energy was converted into broken God force, it began to repel the heavenly Tao energy in Zhuowen's body. After all the heavenly Tao energy was expelled, Zhuowen's body was only left with broken God force. Zhuowen's cultivation base was also increasing at a speed visible to the naked eye. When he created the primordial incantation, his cultivation base had already broken through from the mid-stage to the late stage. Now, his cultivation base had skyrocketed from the late heavenly master stage all the way to the peak late heavenly master stage. Finally, a thunderous rumble rang out from Zhuowen's body, and Zhuowen's aura surged out like a tidal wave. He had actually broken through to the peak of the transcending heaven's sovereign realm. Zhuowen did not continue to break through. He knew that he was breaking through too quickly. If he continued to break through, his foundation would be unstable. In the following period of time, he would stabilize his foundation before continuing to cultivate. Zhuowen stood up. His eyes were filled with excitement. His harvest, this time, was simply too heaven-defying. Coupled with the fact that he had broken God force in advance, his combat strength was already unimaginable. It could be said that even if Zhuowen did not rely on his doppelganger, his human body could easily kill a peak heavenly master. Even a first blight expert who was half a step away from the heaven-breaking realm might not necessarily be his opponent. At this moment, Zhuowen discovered that his human body, which had the primordial incantation, had far more potential than his doppelganger. He knew very well that if he wanted to upgrade his Pangu's sacred body, he not only needed enough energy, but also the ancestral sorcery venomous insects. If he could not gather all the ancestral sorcery venomous insects, it would be difficult for his Pangu's sacred body to be perfected. It would always be flawed. However, Zhuowen did not intend to give up on his doppelganger. He still intended to make his doppelganger complete because the Pangu's sacred body was the only thing in the lower world that could restrain the beasts of chaos. In the future, it would be able to guard this starry sky. I just returned to the heaven-accessing realm. Zhuowen got up, left the broken planet, and rushed toward the heaven-accessing realm. Soon, He arrived at the border of the chaotic canyon. He found that the gap that he had broken open had been repaired. However, he did not care. With his current level of formation skills, it was too easy to break open a gap at the border. When he entered the chaotic canyon, he found that the number of cultivators in the canyon was pitifully small. Moreover, he found many corpses. There were traces of a great battle in the chaotic canyon. Fellow Taoist, please help me. Suddenly, Zhuowen saw a middle-aged man lying among several corpses. When he saw Zhuowen, he hurriedly asked for help. Zhuowen came to the middle-aged man, took out a healing elixir, and fed it to him. He asked, "Fellow Taoist, what happened in the chaotic canyon? Why is it a mess?" The corpse of ancestral sorcery Tianwu has appeared, causing a great battle between the human clan and the alien clan. Many cultivators died. After the middle-aged man took the healing elixir, his breathing became much more stable. Fellow Taoist, now the chaotic starry sky is a place of trouble. You'd better leave here quickly. Hearing this, Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He did not expect that the corpse of the ancestral sorcerer really existed in the chaotic starry sky within the heaven accessing place. It seemed that the Black King did not lie to him. The rest of the ancestral sorcerer corpses should be here. After Zhuowen asked the middle-aged man where the great battle was now, he left the chaotic canyon. Now that he had just obtained a great opportunity and his cultivation had increased rapidly, it was just the right time to train himself. Moreover, the ancestral sorcery goo in the corpse was something that he must obtain. He would not stand by and watch. Hundreds of millions of miles away from the chaotic canyon, there was a wasteland floating in the starry sky. The wasteland was very large and filled with all kinds of ruins. At this moment, there were thousands of figures gathered in the wasteland, including both the human clan and the alien clan. And the focus of these cultivators was basically on the two figures in the crowd. The skin color of these two people was very different. One was light blue, and the other was bright red. If Zhuowen was here, he would definitely recognize these two people. Back then, he had seen these two people in the newly built Witch God City. At that time, Dong Huangtai had just visited Wizard God City, and these two people had come to see him off. He remembered that these two people were called Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao. They were former Saint Lords of the Sorcerer Tribe and experts of the Sorcerer Tower in the chaotic street of the Heaven Accessing Place. Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao looked around at the crowd. Wu Jiyan said to the experts of the alien clan, "Everyone, the ancestral sorcerer is the ancestor of our sorcerer tribe. The corpse of ancestral sorcerer Tianwu should belong to our sorcerer tower. However, you can rest assured that you have done a good job in discovering the corpse. Follow me back to the sorcerer tower in the chaotic street. Lord Wu Taiji will definitely reward you handsomely. However, if anyone dares to have any ideas, you will be on the sorcerer tower's kill list in the future. No matter where you go, you will not be able to survive." After Wu Jiyan's words, many of the experts of the alien clan suddenly became cautious. Chapter 3467. White-robed sword demonas. Soon as Wu Jiyan finished speaking, the foreign race cultivators that surrounded Wu Jimiao and Wu Jiyan quietly retreated. The Wu Tower was too powerful on the chaotic street. They were all residents of the chaotic street. Offending the Wu Tower was not worth it. Humph! Wu Jiyan, Wu Jimiao, the 12 ancestors of the shamans, were formed by the body of the ancient god Pangu. The 3 pure ones were formed by Panga's primordial spirit. They come from the same source. This ancestor shaman's body should belong to the 3 pure palace. After the foreign race cultivators retreated, a white-haired man slowly walked out from the group of human cultivators. The white-haired man carried a divine sword on his back. His eyes shone brightly, and his aura was extremely powerful. This person was also half a step away from the heaven-breaking realm. His aura was no weaker than Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao. More accurately, he was even stronger than Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao. It's the famous white-haired sword demon, Jiang Ruisi. He's a peak first blight cultivator and is ranked in the top 20 of the 3 pure streets. He's extremely powerful. After the white-haired man walked out, the people around him exclaimed. Clearly, many people recognized him. Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao's expressions darkened when they saw the white-haired man. They didn't expect that the white-haired sword demon, Jiang Ruisi, would be in the vicinity. It should be known that the half-step heaven-crushing experts in the heaven-accessing secret realm were almost always elusive. Most of them were in seclusion, and very few of them would be like other cultivators, searching for things in the chaotic starry sky in exchange for cave rent. This was because half-step heaven-crushing cultivators had special privileges. They could live in the top-grade cave abodes, and they didn't have to pay rent. Jiang Ruisi was also in seclusion. Later, he received a message from the 3 Pure Ones and had to come out to help the 3 Pure Ones take back the ancestor shaman Tianwu's body. Although the ancestor shaman's body contained extremely powerful energy, it was very beneficial to foreign races who cultivated their physical bodies. It wasn't as effective for humans. To Jiang Ruisi, using the ancestor shaman's body to cultivate was not as effective as cultivating in the heaven-reaching secret realm. If it weren't for the 3 Pure Ones inviting him out of seclusion, he might still be cultivating in seclusion right now. At that moment, Zhuowen arrived and saw Wu Jiyan, Wu Jimiao, and Jiang Ruisi facing each other. Many strong cultivators were watching from afar. Wu Jiyan, Wu Jimiao, you are no match for me. Give me ancestor sorcerer Tian Wu's body. Jiang Ruisi said coldly. Wu Jimiao laughed coldly. Jiang Ruisi, if any of us were to face you alone, we would not be your match. However, if we were to join forces, it would not be so easy for you to defeat us. Jiang Ruisi sneered with disdain. He took a step forward, and a powerful aura gushed out like a tidal wave. Clang! Jiang Ruisi made his move. His speed was very fast. The moment he rushed out, the divine sword on his back was immediately unsheathed. It blossomed with a dazzling divine splendor, like a rising sun. Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao's faces darkened. They joined forces and flew towards Jiang Ruisi. Rumble! The 2 of them immediately engaged in a fierce battle. Terrifying energy ripples spread out, and the surrounding starry sky exploded. Everything within range of the explosion was turned into fine powder. The onlookers stayed far away, and Zhuowen blended into the crowd. From the discussions of the crowd, he knew that ancestor sorcerer Tian Wu's body was in Wu Jiyan's spirit ring. Zhuowen did not act rashly. Instead, he silently observed the battle between Jiang Ruisi and the other 2. Regardless of whether it was Zhuowen's original body or his avatar, they were no weaker than a first blight expert. When the 2 of them combined, their battle power doubled. They could fight a second blight expert. If Zhuowen combined his original body and avatar and intervened, Zhuowen would be able to defeat any one of the 3. However, Zhuowen did not do so. It would be too conspicuous. After all, he was still wanted by Wu Taiji. Furthermore, Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao were members of the sorcerer tribe. They had a grudge against him. Although he was confident that he could defeat them, it would be difficult to kill them. Therefore, he was waiting for an opportunity for both sides to be injured. Boom, boom, boom. The white-clothed sword demon, Jiang Ruisi, was indeed powerful. He was not at a disadvantage in his battle with Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao. In fact, he had the upper hand. Soon, the battle between the two of them reached its climax. The battle became more and more intense, and the area of destruction became more and more extensive. Amidst the endless light, Jiang Ruisi found a flaw in Wu Jiyan's defense. The divine sword in his hand slashed out mercilessly, cutting Wu Jiyan in half. Blood splattered everywhere, raining down from the sky. Wu Jiyan screamed in agony. The two halves of his body flew backward in different directions. Just as Jiang Ruisi found an opportunity to cut Wu Jiyan in half, Wu Jimiao reacted quickly. He seized the best opportunity to pounce on Jiang Ruisi and throw a heavy punch. Wu Jimiao used all his strength in this punch. The fist force emitted a strange blue light as it slammed into Jiang Ruisi's chest. Jiang Ruisi groaned and spat out a mouthful of blood. His chest had been pierced through. Strange, icy lines spread out from the wound and wrapped around the left side of Jiang Ruisi's body, making it difficult for Jiang Ruisi to move. However, Jiang Ruisi's reaction was not slow. The moment he was pushed back, he threw out the divine sword in his hand. The divine sword emitted a divine light that could not be looked at directly. It was like a flying immortal. It moved as fast as lightning and instantly reached Wu Jimiao's chest. The divine sword was too fast. Wu Jimiao only had time to avoid being hit. His right hand and right shoulder were cut off. Blood splattered everywhere. In just an instant, Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao were both injured. Wu Jiyan's injuries were the most serious. He had been cut in half, and his upper body had flown in opposite directions. At this moment, Wu Jiyan's upper body was approaching his lower body. He planned to put his upper body back together and use the way of the heavens to heal his injuries. Wu Jimiao's right arm and right shoulder had been cut off and turned to dust by the powerful sword light. At this moment, his injuries were slowly healing. The white-robed sword demon, Jiang Ruisi, was pale. He frantically used his divine power to resist the blue lines that had appeared in his chest. This was Wu Jimiao's icy power. It contained the extreme rules of ice and was very difficult to deal with. He was trying to force this power out. The spectators were all dumbstruck. They didn't think that a battle between half-step heaven-crushing stage cultivators would be so terrifying. After all, they had clearly witnessed the explosion in the starry sky just then. That kind of violent energy was enough to kill a peak powerhouse like Lord Skirich countless times. Jiang Ruisi, Wu Jiyan, and Wu Jimiao stopped attacking. They faced each other from afar, trying to buy time to heal. The scene was eerily quiet. Chapter 3468. Consecutive annihilation. At this moment, Wu Jiyan's upper body was about to reach his lower body. The figure teleported in front of Wu Jiyan and stepped on his lower body. The powerful force caused Wu Jiyan's lower body to tremble violently, and he was sent flying again. Whoosh! 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 Instantly, all eyes gathered on the figure. No one had expected such a turn of events. Someone actually dared to step on Wu Jiyan's body. This person was tired of living. Soon, they discovered that this was a very ordinary-looking youth. He was dressed in white and had a pale complexion. He had the temperament of a weak scholar. Peak master of heaven, what is this guy trying to do? Is he provoking Wu Jiyan? This guy is finished. Although Wu Jiyan is seriously injured, he is still a first blight expert. He can kill this guy who is only at the peak of master of heaven with one blow. The crowd was in an uproar, but soon many people sneered. They felt that this youth who had suddenly stepped on Wu Jiyan's lower body was seeking his own death. You're courting death. Wu Jiyan was stunned at first. Then he flew into a rage and slammed his palm toward the youth's head. This palm was too terrifying. It shook the heavens and earth. The surrounding space distorted and exploded. The aura was too terrifying. Jiang Ruisi and Wu Jimiao, who were recuperating in the distance, watched this scene expressionlessly. In their eyes, this youth who was at the peak of Master of Heaven was just an ant jumping around recklessly in front of them. They had no doubt that Wu Jiyan's palm was enough to turn this youth to dust. The young man's eyes were indifferent. He also threw out a punch. A mysterious purple light appeared on the surface of his fist. His aura was restrained. Compared to Wu Jian's powerful punch, it was like the difference between heaven and earth. The difference was too great. When he saw the youth's ordinary punch, Wu Jian almost laughed out loud. However, he quickly restrained himself. His eyes were cold as he used more strength. He planned to beat this arrogant youth to death with one punch. Puchi! The two fists collided. One of the fists cracked. The difference was too great. Blood splattered everywhere, accompanied by screams. It was a tragic scene. The spectators were all stunned. In their eyes, the disparity between the two of them was too great to begin with. However, what was happening before their eyes was indeed unstoppable. It was just that the person being destroyed was not the youth at the peak of the Sky Transcendence Master, but Wu Jian, whom they had high hopes for. Wu Jian's right fist was crushed. He screamed and retreated. His eyes were filled with shock and fear. The young man followed closely behind and threw another punch. His fist glowed purple and landed on Wu Jian's chest. Puchi! Wu Jian's right chest was shattered. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Wu Jian struggled with all his might, even burning his blood essence in an attempt to retreat. However, the young man would not give him another chance. His left hand formed a sword and pointed at Wu Jian's forehead, piercing through it. Plop! Wu Jian screamed and fell to the ground. His aura gradually disappeared, and his eyes dimmed. The surroundings were too quiet, so quiet that it was frightening. Everyone looked at Wu Jian's corpse in disbelief. Wu Jian had been killed just like that. Jiang Ruisi was also stunned. When he regained his senses, his gaze turned heavy as he stared at Zhuo Wen. Fear could be seen in his eyes. Ah, bastard! How dare you kill my elder brother? I will kill you to pay for his death. Wu Jimiao regained his senses and roared angrily. His body exploded with blue light as he charged madly at the young man. The young man who had suddenly appeared and killed Wu Jian in a few moves was naturally Zhuo Wen. This was the first time his human true body was going to battle after cultivating the primordial chaos arts. The strength of his human true body was so strong that even Zhuo Wen himself found it unbelievable. In terms of energy, Zhuo Wen was far from Wu Jian's. However, he had broken godly power, which was of a higher level than heavenly path energy circulating in his body. The penetrative power of the broken godly power was too terrifying. It was simply unstoppable. Zhuo Wen knew that with the broken godly power, although his cultivation level was only at the peak of the Master of Heaven Pass, his battle power was enough to fight with Jiang Ruisi, who was at the peak of the first blight. At that moment, Zhuo Wen also noticed Wu Jimiao charging over. He quickly put away the spirit ring on Wu Jian's corpse. He knew that Ancestor Wu Jian's corpse should be in Wu Jian's spirit ring. Bastard, you dared to sneak attack my elder brother and use despicable means to kill him. You will pay a huge price for this. Die! Wu Jimiao's attack had already arrived. The surrounding temperature instantly dropped, turning into an endless world of ice and snow. The bone-chilling cold spread out as if it could freeze one's blood. Wu Jimiao's right arm had been destroyed by Jiang Ruisi and had yet to recover. Thus, he had used his left hand, which was not very familiar with the attack. The power was greatly reduced. However, Wu Jimiao was very confident. In his opinion, Zhuowen had killed Wu Jiyan with a sneak attack. In addition, Wu Jiyan had been seriously injured. That was how Zhuowen had managed to kill him. In his heart, this person was just an ant at the peak of the Master of Heaven Pass. Even if he was injured, he could kill him with a flip of his hand. Zhuowen saw Wu Jimiao's arrogance and laughed coldly. His right hand shot out like lightning and grabbed Wu Jimiao's fist. Broken godly power exploded. Crack! Wu Jimiao's left hand was broken by Zhuowen. His bones were dislocated. What pained Wu Jimiao the most was that the broken godly power had entered his body and destroyed his flesh, meridians, and foundation. What kind of power is this? How can... Wu Jimiao screamed in pain. He could feel his body being invaded by the broken godly power. He broke out in a cold sweat, and his face turned pale. Zhuowen did not give Wu Jimiao a chance to speak. He bent his right knee and slammed it into Wu Jimiao's abdomen. Then, he raised his right leg and slammed it down. The back of Wu Jimiao's head was hit, and he fell to the ground like a dog eating *T. Bang. Wu Jimiao was sprawled on the ground, his body twitching. He could not get up. His body was being invaded by the broken godly power. It was too painful. He felt as if his entire body was being torn apart. He screamed in pain. "You have to pay the price for being so arrogant in front of me." Zhuowen lifted Wu Jimiao and pointed his finger at the space between Wu Jimiao's eyebrows, destroying his spiritual soul. After Zhuowen took Wu Jimiao's spiritual ring, he threw Wu Jimiao's body aside like trash. His gaze landed on the white-robed sword demon, Jiang Ruisi, who was not far away. The moment Jiang Ruisi felt Zhuowen's gaze, his heart jumped. As if by reflex, he quickly retreated. His eyes were full of fear. This youth at the peak of the Master of Heaven Pass before him was too strange. His cultivation was not high, but his abilities were heaven-defying. The two brothers, Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao, had been killed by him in an instant. Although Zhuowen was suspected of taking advantage of the situation, it was still terrifying. It was not something an ordinary peak Master of Heaven Pass could do. Chapter 3469. Nameless Rogue Cultivator. When Zhuowen saw Jiang Ruisi's reaction, he found it funny. He knew that the powerful battle prowess he had just displayed had completely intimidated Jiang Ruisi. The surroundings were completely silent, especially the experts of the foreign races. They stayed far away, afraid that Zhuowen would find them. Zhuowen's divine will entered Wu Jiyan's spirit ring and quickly found the corpse of Ancestral, which Tian Wu. After retracting his divine will, Zhuowen planned to leave. At that moment, in the eyes of the crowd, Zhuowen was a ruthless individual with overflowing strength. However, no one was blind enough to stop him. "Fellow cultivator, please wait." Seeing that Zhuowen was about to leave, the white-robed sword devil Jiang Ruisi called out to him. "What's the matter?" Zhuowen glanced at Jiang Ruisi and asked indifferently, "There's an ancestor sorcerer's corpse in Wu Ji's flame spirit ring. That thing might not be very useful to you. I wonder if you can give me that ancestor sorcerer's corpse. I'm willing to exchange it with a half-step heaven-breaking divine pellet." Jiang Ruisi cupped his fists at Zhuowen and spoke respectfully and politely. Zhuowen shook his head and refused. His purpose for coming here was to obtain the corpse of the witch ancestor. How could he possibly give it up now? Seeing that Zhuowen refused, Jiang Ruisi frowned and said in a deep voice, "Fellow cultivator, this thing was ordered by the 3 pure palaces, Lord 3 Pure Ones. You should know Lord 3 Pure Ones, right? I think you should give face to Lord 3 Pure Ones." Zhuowen shook his head and ignored Jiang Ruisi. He took a step forward and flew into the distance. The white-robed sword demon, Jiang Ruisi, watched Shuo Wen leave decisively. His face darkened, but he didn't dare to chase after him. The young man who had suddenly appeared was very powerful. He could easily deal with Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao. In Jiang Ruisi's opinion, the young man who had suddenly appeared was at least at the peak of the first blight, or even stronger. Even at his peak, it would be difficult for him to kill this person, let alone now that he was injured. Looks like I need to go back and report to Lord 3 Pure Ones. Jiang Ruisi sighed and left the place. The crowd quickly dispersed, but they brought back the news of Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao's deaths. The entire sky accessing secret land was shaken. For countless years, there had never been a half-step heaven-breaking cultivator in the sky accessing secret land. But now, 2 of them had died. How could this not cause a sensation in the heaven accessing place? Because Shuo Wen did not reveal his real name, the practitioners in the heaven accessing place called him a nameless individual practitioner. The nameless cultivators house cultivators spread the sky accessing cultivators, names cultivator, nameless cultivator, could be Sky News cultivator. Many cultivators were discussing the origins of this nameless rogue cultivator, and how could he be so terrifyingly powerful? God, cultivator, transcend God, transcend cultivator, transcend cultivator, transcend cultivator, underscore cultivator, to Tian's cultivators, cultivator. After learning that ancestor sorcerer Tian Wu's corpse had appeared in the chaotic stars, Wu Taiji had immediately sent out Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao. He had thought that things would go smoothly after sending out the 2 brothers. Who would have thought that instead of receiving good news about Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao, he would receive bad news about their deaths? Who is that lone cultivator? How dare you kill my Wu Towers people? Wu Taiji roared in a low voice. At this moment, there was a beautiful woman with a voluptuous figure in the room beside Wu Taiji. The beautiful woman walked to Wu Taiji's side and slowly sat down. She comforted him softly. Taiji, calm down. It's useless to be angry now. The most important thing now is to find out who the lone cultivator who killed Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao is. Wu Taiji calmed down and frowned. He waved his sleeve, and an image of a battle appeared in the air. The image was of the battle between Zhuo Wen and Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao. Wu Taiji had bought it from a foreign tribe expert at the scene. This lone cultivator should be a human tribe cultivator. It is said that he is only at the peak of the Master of Heaven Pass, but his strength is terrifying. The beautiful woman looked at the image with a trace of doubt. I have never seen this person before. He is a stranger. Xiang, or what do you see? Wu Taiji asked in a low voice. The beautiful woman's eyes flashed. She repeatedly looked at Zhuo Wen in the image and said, "This person's appearance is disguised. Although he is a human tribe cultivator, the white-robed sword demon, Jiang Ruisi, is a stranger to him." Even the human tribe cultivators who were present at the time knew nothing about him. His cultivation was not even half a step away from breaking heaven. Obviously, this person is a newcomer who has just entered the heavenly secret area. Speaking of this, the beautiful woman looked at Wu Taiji and said, "We can check the tokens that have been sent out in the past 100 years. Then we can find the corresponding suspect." Wu Taiji's eyes flashed. He quickly sent a message to Tianshu Pavilion to check the tokens that had been sent out in the past 100 years. Soon, Wu Taiji received a reply. "Have you found it?" the beautiful woman asked. Wu Taiji nodded and said, "In the past 100 years, a total of 3 communication tokens were sent out. 1 from the Xianmi heavenly domain and 2 from the primitive heavenly domain." The beautiful woman's eyes lit up and said, "That lone cultivator is from the human tribe. He must be from the Xian, Mi heavenly domain. The owner of this token should be that lone cultivator. Who is it?" Wu Taiji was a little excited. His eyes lit up as he looked at the beautiful woman and said, "That token was sent to Zhuowen of the human tribe. Xiang, that lone cultivator could be the Zhuowen we have been looking for." The beautiful woman was also stunned, but soon she was so excited that her body trembled. Her beautiful eyes lit up, and she said, "We have searched high and low for something, only to find it by chance. We actually found that Zhuowen." The beautiful woman was very excited. She knew that capturing Zhuowen meant that they would obtain a heaven-breaking cultivation technique, which was very expensive. "Are we going to arrest that lone cultivator now?" the beautiful woman asked. Wu Taiji calmed down and shook his head. He said, "This Zhuowen is very good at hiding. We don't need to arrest him this time. I think he will appear again. We will increase our efforts to arrest Zhuowen. This will make the lone cultivator that Zhuowen is disguised as relax. When that lone cultivator appears in the chaotic stars again, the Wizard Tower will send out second blight and third blight experts to take down that Zhuowen." Wu Taiji's eyes flashed with excitement. He began to instruct the cultivators of the Wizard Tower to secretly sneak into the chaotic stars and secretly search for Zhuowen. Once there was news of Zhuowen, they should not act rashly. They had to inform the Wizard Tower first, so that the Wizard Tower could send out experts. At the same time, Wu Taiji began to use Bing Hui's communication token to contact him. He reported that he already had clues about Zhuowen. Bing Hui replied and asked Wu Taiji to do his best to kill Zhuowen. If he succeeded, he would definitely give him the Purple Extreme Spiritual Technique. Chapter 3470. Blight Tribulation 3 Pure. One sat in the pavilion, sipping tea and playing chess. Lian Meng stood aside, silently. A nameless cultivator. 3 Pure. One's mumbled to himself, but he couldn't help but laugh. He immediately guessed that the nameless cultivator was Zhuowen. Lian Meng, go to the chaotic starry sky. Find Zhuowen and tell him where the other 2 corpses of ancestral sorcerers are. Even I reject those 2 dangerous places. I'm afraid that only Zhuowen, who has obtained the inheritance of Panyu, can enter those 2 dangerous places smoothly. 3 Pure Ones stopped playing chess and looked at Lian Meng with a smile. Lian Meng's beautiful eyes regained their clarity, but when 3 Pure Ones ordered her, her beautiful eyes became dull again. "Yes, master." Lian Meng nodded and left 3 Pure Ones' palace. In the northwest of the chaotic starry sky, there was an area full of meteorites. A figure sat cross-legged on one of the meteorites. This place was very remote and close to the border of the heaven accessing place. The pressure of the chaotic starry sky was terrible, and the land was barren, which was why there were few people here. Zhuowen sat cross-legged on a meteorite. He took out the spirit rings of Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao and put everything in the 2 spirit rings into the great world without hesitation. Of course, Zhuowen also put Tian Wu's corpse into the macro world. Tian Wu had 8 heads and 8 faces, the body of a tiger, 8 legs and 8 tails, and was greenish-yellow in color. He was an expert of the water element among the 12 ancestral sorcerers and had mastered all the secret skills related to the water element. At this moment, Tian Wu's huge corpse was floating in the sky above the macro world, which immediately startled all the creatures in the macro world, especially the Ryuka people living in the macro world. They were all shocked. It was the first time they had seen the ancestral sorcerer, so they were all curious. The doppelganger in the macro world naturally explained to the Ryuka people the concept of the ancestral sorcerer. The next step was for the doppelganger to take out the ancestral sorcerer's goo worms from Tian Wu's corpse and integrate them into the Panga's sacred body. Zhuowen knew that his Panga's sacred body had reached the peak of 8 stars. If he absorbed the goo of ancestral sorcerer Tianyu, his Panga's sacred body would evolve again and become a 9-star sacred body. Zhuowen estimated that the 9-star early-stage Panga's sacred body was comparable to a second blight cultivator. If the original body and avatar fused, their battle power would be terrifying. They would be able to defeat ordinary second blight cultivators. In the macro world, when the doppelganger began to merge with the Tianwu poisonous insect, the original body left the meteorite area. He followed the starry sky and headed north until he reached the border of the heaven accessing place. He stopped and waved his sleeve. The beast bone formation disk turned into a formation vortex. The formation vortex slammed into the boundary of the formation, causing it to tremble violently. Soon, an inconspicuous hole appeared. Zhuowen sat cross-legged by the side of the hole, while his breathing rose and fell as he circulated the primordial technique, causing his entire body to emanate violet divine radiance that illuminated him to the point he seemed like a violet jade statue. Although he had just broken through to the peak of the heaven-piercing master stage, his battle with Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao, who were both half a step away from the heaven-piercing master stage, had brought him great benefits. He wanted to try to break through to the next half a step away from the heaven-piercing master stage. If it were an ordinary cultivator, it would take at least hundreds of thousands of years to break through from the peak of the heaven-piercing master stage to the next half a step away from the heaven-piercing master stage. However, Zhuowen was very special. His spirit had merged with the Tai word stone of the primordial stone. It should be known that this was a peerless cultivation method that could cause the legendary Carefree Realm cultivators to fight over even in the 100 domains. This cultivation method was really too extraordinary. With the help of the Tai word stone, Zhuowen's spirit had a high comprehension ability that surpassed all the creatures in the lower world. Even among the countless geniuses in the 100 domains, there were probably very few who could compare with Zhuowen in terms of comprehension ability. With the help of such a strong comprehension ability, Zhuowen's cultivation speed was extraordinarily fast. It was not surprising to say that it was heaven-defying. The violet light around Zhuowen became more and more intense. He even opened his eyes. His pupils had already turned violet. It was indescribably demonic. Accompanying it was the aura inside Zhuowen's body that became more and more terrifying. Meanwhile, in the chaotic galaxy outside the boundary, the surging chaotic energy was being sucked into Zhuowen's body like a storm. Now, Zhuowen had become the eye of the storm. He was rapidly absorbing the chaotic energy in the chaotic galaxy. Moreover, he was rapidly converting this chaotic energy into chaotic divine power. Zhuowen could clearly feel the rapidly increasing chaotic divine power in his body. However, he knew that this chaotic divine power was far from enough. I didn't think that I would need to use the chaos crystal so soon. Zhuowen's eyes flashed. He took out a sparkling and translucent crystal from his great world. This crystal was very special. It was irregular and flashed with divine light. The chaotic energy contained in this chaos crystal was far more concentrated than in the chaotic galaxy. Zhuowen didn't even need to circulate the primordial technique. The chaotic energy in this chaos crystal could rapidly surge into his body. Zhuowen was pleasantly surprised. He hadn't expected the chaotic energy in the chaos crystal to be so concentrated. His aura was also rapidly rising. Finally, when 1/3 of the chaos crystal was consumed, Zhuowen's aura reached its peak. The chaotic galaxy, within hundreds of billions of kilometers, shattered like broken glass. It was filled with dense cracks. The restrictions at the boundary of this area all collapsed, causing an ultimate explosion. The commotion was so great that it quickly attracted the attention of nearby cultivators. One figure after another quickly converged towards Zhuo Wen's side. When the cultivators arrived nearby and saw the shattered starry sky before them, they were all shocked. Then they came to a halt. The laws of the chaotic galaxy were much stronger than those of the lower realms. The pressure emanating from a complete chaotic galaxy was enough to make an ordinary master of heaven ascension suffer. The destructive power of this shattered chaotic galaxy was even more shocking. Cultivators who weren't strong enough would be courting death if they entered this area. Zhuowen stood at the center of the shattered galaxy. His back was as straight as a javelin. He noticed that more and more cultivators were gathering around him, but he didn't have the energy to pay attention to them. Right now, all of his attention was focused on the sky above. Extremely terrifying energy began to brew in the depths of the chaotic galaxy. Is this the 5 blights of the Heaven's Blight? Zhuowen sensed the terrifying tribulation in the depths of the galaxy. He knew that this was the Earth's blight tribulation that one had to undergo after reaching the half-step heaven-crushing stage. He knew that if he could survive this Earth's blight tribulation, then his cultivation base would officially reach the first blight. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, countless bolts of lightning, flames, wind, and other types of terrifying energy descended from the depths of the galaxy. Chapter 3471. Saber Tyrant Du Huaken. Heavens, what a powerful energy wave. This person is going through the blight tribulation. Is he going to advance to the half-step heaven-crushing stage? The cultivators who had gathered all had serious expressions when they saw the starry sky, especially when they saw the terrifying tribulation descending from the depths of the chaotic sky. Everyone realized that someone was going through the blight tribulation here. This person looks familiar. It's the nameless itinerant cultivator who killed Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao. I remember that he's only at the peak of the Master of Heaven crushing stage. He's going to go through the first blight of the Heaven's Blight. Among the crowd, some cultivators who possessed powerful ocular secret techniques activated their powerful ocular techniques and saw Zhuo Wen's appearance from afar. They could not help but cry out in surprise. What? It's actually a nameless itinerant cultivator. When he killed Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao and suppressed the white-robed sword demon, Jiang Ruisi, I always thought that he was a first or second blight cultivator. He was just hiding his cultivation level. I didn't expect him to really be at the peak of the Master of Heaven crushing stage. Damn, he really is at the peak of the Master of Heaven crushing stage. Where did this nameless itinerant cultivator come from? How can he be so powerful? If he can kill a first blight cultivator at the peak of the Master of Heaven crushing stage, wouldn't he be even more powerful now that he's going through the blight tribulation? Many cultivators who were watching from afar were shocked and in awe after learning that Zhuowen was only at the peak of the Master of Heaven crushing stage. Most cultivators felt admiration for Zhuowen. Among the crowd of spectators, a portion of the foreign race experts' eyes flickered. They took out their communication jade talismans and began to inform Wu Lu. They were very excited. They didn't expect to find the nameless itinerant cultivator so quickly. The Wu Tower had secretly informed the foreign race cultivators on the desolate street. If anyone could provide the Wu Tower with information about the nameless itinerant cultivator, they would be rewarded handsomely. At that moment, in the Wu Tower, the first tower master, Wu Taiji, and his cultivation companion, Wu Xiangjuan, were both excited. They had both received news from the foreign race cultivators that the nameless itinerant cultivator was going through the blight tribulation at the northern border. Taiji, I didn't expect to find that nameless itinerant cultivator so quickly. Who are you going to send to take down that guy next?" The beautiful Wu Xiangjuan laughed. Wu Taiji was confident of victory and said indifferently, "I've already sent Wu Juanhao. At the same time, I'll also send 2 Second Blight, which experts to go with Wu Juanhao. This time, we must take down Zhuowen." Hearing this, Wu Xiangjuan's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly as she looked deeply at Wu Taiji. She did not expect that Wu Taiji would send Wu Juanhao. Wu Juanhao's name was very famous at that time. Before he entered the heaven accessing place, he was already famous in the untainted heavenly domain and the Xianmi heavenly domain. He was the most talented young man in that era, and no one could compete with him. When Wu Juanhao had just reached the first blight, he had killed a human at the peak of the first blight on 3 Clear Street. Because of this, a war had almost broken out between the 2 streets. Wu Juanhao's name was well known in the heaven accessing realm. Now, Wu Juanhao's cultivation had reached the peak of the second blight, and he was very powerful. In the untainted street, he could be ranked in the top 15. He was a very terrifying expert. Wu Xiangjuan originally thought that Wu Taiji would only send 1 or 2 ordinary Second Blight experts, and she also felt that 1 or 2 ordinary Second Blight experts would be enough to take down Zhuowen. But she never expected that Wu Taiji would attach so much importance to Zhuowen that he would send a genius like Wu Juanhao. If Wu Juanhao takes action, Zhuowen will definitely be taken down. Wu Xiangjuan said. Wu Taiji smiled slightly, and the corners of his mouth were full of confidence. He did not doubt Wu Juanhao's strength. Even if Zhuowen had passed the blight and reached the first blight, so what? In front of Wu Juanhao, he was still like an ant. At this moment, in the extreme north of the heaven accessing place, Zhuowen's blight was getting more and more terrifying. Thunder, fire, and other kinds of energy poured down from the depths of the chaotic starry sky, like a flood pouring onto Zhuowen's body. Zhuowen operated the primordial chant, and purple light flashed around his body like purple jade, shining with a mysterious brilliance. It had to be said that Zhuowen's self-created primordial chant was very magical, and its power was beyond Zhuowen's imagination. In particular, the broken divine power that he had mastered was so powerful that it surprised Zhuowen. The first blight was very terrifying, and the calamities that descended were very powerful, but they were all resolved by the primordial chant one by one. Zhuowen's body was flowing with purple light, and it was crystal clear. He had already faced several waves of calamity energy, and each wave was more terrifying than the last, but Zhuowen was unscathed, which surprised Zhuowen. Zhuowen knew that if this continued, he would not be seriously injured until the blight was completely over. And all of this was thanks to the magic of the primordial chant. Just as Zhuowen was crossing the blight, a fresh and beautiful figure swept over from afar. Her pure, white silk hair fluttered in the wind, and she looked like a fairy who had fallen into the mortal world. She immediately attracted the attention of the many cultivators who were watching Zhuowen cross the blight. Soon, the beautiful figure swept over from afar to the edge of the broken starry sky, and a pair of beautiful eyes flowed with light as they stared at the youth who was crossing the blight. The beautiful figure was a young girl who was only 17 or 18 years old. Her whole body exuded an immortal aura, as if she did not belong to the mortal world. The young girl was not extremely beautiful, but she had a kind of holy beauty that could not be profaned. It's fairy Lian Meng of the 3 Purities Palace. I really didn't expect that this nameless rogue cultivator crossing the tribulation would attract this fairy. When the young girl completely appeared in front of everyone, everyone was surprised, and many of their gazes were extremely hot. Lian Meng was the only disciple of Taoist Three Purities of the Three Purities Palace, and her status was very high. Coupled with her fairy-like holy temperament, she was very popular in the heaven-accessing territory, and there were countless admirers who pursued her. At this moment, Lian Meng did not pay attention to the discussions of the surrounding people. Her beautiful eyes were fixed on Zhuowen, who was crossing the tribulation. She faintly sighed, but her beautiful eyes were very calm. She did not have the slightest excitement of seeing Zhuowen again. Senior brother Zhuowen, I really didn't expect that you would be able to reach such an achievement after leaving Master. You are indeed worthy of being the person Master thinks highly of. However, senior brother Zhuowen, no matter how you struggle, you will not be able to escape Master's palm. Your fate was already decided the moment you were accepted as a disciple by Master. Lian Meng whispered softly, and there was a trace of complexity in her calm eyes. Lian Meng, I really didn't expect that you would also come. What a coincidence! Just as Lian Meng was staring at Zhuowen in a daze, a rather elegant voice rang out. A handsome man with a saber at his waist flew over from afar, and soon arrived not far from Lian Meng, looking at her with a rather fervent gaze. The saber man's aura was very powerful, and it was even more powerful than the white-robed sword demon Jiang Ruisi. This was especially true because of the faintly discernible saber light that surrounded his body. These saber lights looked like illusions, but once the saber man fought, these saber lights would form a very terrifying domain that would kill anything that approached him. It's saber tyrant Du Huacan. I didn't expect that this person would also come. Chapter 3472. Wu Juanhaolian. Meng glanced at Du Huacan calmly and greeted him indifferently. She didn't seem to have any intention of getting close to him, and she even seemed a little distant. Du Huacan didn't feel awkward at all. Instead, he moved closer and looked at Zhuowen, who was still undergoing his blight, and said, "This person should be the nameless itinerant cultivator who's been spreading like wildfire recently. I remember that white-robed sword demon Jiang Ruisi was defeated by this person. I have to say that Jiang Ruisi is really a piece of trash. He's actually afraid of a mere peak heaven-piercing master." Du Huacan's words caused everyone to become mute. Everyone knew that there was some enmity between Du Huacan and white-robed sword demon Jiang Ruisi. Du Huacan's words were filled with disdain toward Jiang Ruisi, and no one was surprised. Moreover, Du Huacan was even stronger than Jiang Ruisi. It was said that he had broken through a few days ago and reached the second blight. Now was the time for him to be proud of himself, so he naturally had to belittle Jiang Ruisi. Of course, this nameless itinerant cultivator is also good. At least he helped me teach that piece of trash, Jiang Ruisi, a lesson. He helped me vent my anger. So I have to properly thank this nameless itinerant cultivator. Du Huacan said. Everyone was speechless. This Du Huacan changed his words too quickly. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, the blight at the center of the shattered starry sky became more and more terrifying. Dense tribulation energy descended from the depths of the chaotic starry sky, instantly engulfing Zhuowen's figure. A terrifying aura spread out. It was simply too terrifying, causing the surrounding crowd to tremble in fear, and their hair to stand on end. Lian Meng and Du Huacan's expressions also became serious. This nameless itinerant cultivator's blight is about to end. As long as he can survive this wave of tribulation energy, he'll be able to truly step into the half-step heaven-piercing master realm, Du Huacan said solemnly. Lian Meng's beautiful eyes flashed, and she nodded slightly. Although she looked calm on the surface, the fluctuations in the depths of her eyes betrayed her. As everyone watched, 3 streams of light flew over from the distant primal chaos, starry heavens. They were extremely fast, arriving near Lianmeng and Du Huaqan in an instant, stopping at the edge of the shattered starry heavens. These three figures were too fast. When they landed at the edge of the shattered starry sky, they actually swept up a terrifying storm. Then ear-piercing explosions rang out in the starry sky. This was because the speed was too fast, resulting in an extraordinary explosive sound. Everyone's gazes immediately landed on the three figures. Even Lianmeng and Du Huaqan could not help but cast their attention towards the three figures that had suddenly rushed over. The three cultivators were all abnormally tall, and their skin color was different from that of humans. The auras emanating from them were simply too terrifying. Due to the oppressive atmosphere, the surrounding cultivators grew breathless, and none of them dared to speak loudly. Among the three of them, the one who stood out the most was the leader. He was about 10 feet tall, had pale skin, and had the most terrifying aura. The other two were about 10 feet tall, and their skin color was green and blue. It's the shamans. Could that person be Wu Juanhao of Wu Lu? In an instant, everyone's gazes landed on the pale-skinned man, and the surroundings instantly became very noisy. Wu Juanhao was a legendary rising star of the Shaman Tower. He was the youngest half-step heaven-crushing cultivator in the history of the Shaman Tower, and his strength was also terrifyingly powerful. Back then, Wu Juanhao had just advanced to the first blight, and he had personally killed a human cultivator at the peak of the first blight. And now, it was said that Wu Juanhao's cultivation had already reached the peak of the second blight, so his strength was even more unfathomable. What made everyone even more fearful was that Wu Juanhao's methods were decisive and cruel, and he did not show any mercy. Everyone trembled in fear upon hearing his name, and no one wanted to provoke such a ruthless person. Why is this madman also here? Saber tyrant Du Huaqan frowned slightly, and his gaze toward Wu Juanhao was filled with wariness. Lianmeng's eyes narrowed slightly. She knew that Wu Juanhao had come here for Zhuowen. Wu Juanhao indifferently looked at Zhuowen, who was facing the last wave of tribulation energy in the depths of the shattered universe, and killing intent surged in his eyes. He just advanced to the first blight, and the Tower Lord actually sent Lord Juanhao here personally. Isn't he thinking too highly of this guy? The red-skinned male shaman beside Wu Juanhao said with dissatisfaction. Wu Juanhao revealed a proud expression and said indifferently, this person was able to kill Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao when he was at the peak of the master of heaven-crushing realm. He must have his own unique abilities. However, now that I'm here, he won't be able to escape, even if he grows wings. There is no luck. The two shaman race disciples beside him nodded in agreement. It could be said that they listened to Wu Juanhao's every word. Wu Juanhao, why are you here? Lianmeng finally spoke. Her voice was clear and pleasant, like celestial music, melodious and long. Wu Juanhao turned his head and looked at Lianmeng. There was a strange look in his cold eyes. So it's Fairy Lianmeng. I naturally came here because I was attracted by the first blight. Wu Juanhao said indifferently. Lianmeng's beautiful eyes narrowed, and she said, this person is from our 3 Clear Street. I hope that you won't act recklessly when the time comes. Wu Juanhao's eyes were calm as he said, of course. Our desolate street and 3 Clear Street have always minded our own business. Naturally, I won't act recklessly. Lianmeng's beautiful eyes narrowed, and she did not speak. She did not believe Wu Juanhao's words. As the saying goes, one does not visit a temple without a reason. Wu Juanhao was usually in seclusion and rarely came out. Now that he had suddenly appeared here, he must be here to deal with Zhuowen. Thinking of this, Lian Meng was secretly on guard. At that moment, Zhuowen's figure, which was originally covered by the tribulation energy, gradually became clear. Zhuowen's body flickered with purple light. It was mysterious and leisurely, and a terrifying aura overflowed from his body. The purple light was like a blade that could destroy 10,000 laws, and it continuously destroyed the terrifying tribulation energy around him. However, Zhuowen's body was like jade, and he was not injured at all. There was a trace of excitement in Zhuowen's eyes. He had not expected that his first blight tribulation would go so smoothly. He was not even injured. He had heard that the blight tribulation of the 5 signs of heaven was extremely terrifying, and it was more terrifying than the previous one. Many cultivators had been directly annihilated in the blight tribulation. Even if one could survive it, it would be a narrow escape. They would be bombarded by the blight tribulation energy and barely survive. However, he was too abnormal, and it was too easy for him to survive. This is the last blight tribulation. Now that I've passed it, why don't I feel that my aura has transformed? Suddenly, Zhuowen felt that something was wrong. He found that his main body was still at the peak of the Master of Heaven ascension. After experiencing such a terrifying blight tribulation, he had not advanced. Did he fail to advance? No, the blight tribulation is not over yet. Zhuowen's gaze fell on the depths of the chaotic, starry sky. There, the blight tribulation energy had not completely retreated. Instead, it was dormant and brewing, as if a truly terrifying tribulation was about to descend. Attack! Wu Juanhao saw that Zhuowen had survived the last tribulation and shouted. He took the lead to enter the shattered starry sky and rushed towards Zhuowen. Chapter 3473. Gungjin Sword Rain Boom. 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 Wu Juanhao was extremely fast. His body was too strong. The shattered starry sky was filled with terrifying and sharp vortex energy. Ordinary practitioners who entered it would immediately explode. However, Wu Juanhao rushed in directly with his body. Countless vortex energy fell on his body, producing the sound of metal clashing. At the same time, clusters of dazzling sparks flickered. The 2 sorcerer tribe experts behind Wu Juanhao did not dare to be as careless as Wu Juanhao. They surged with powerful energy and wrapped themselves around their bodies, resisting the vortex energy that was constantly bombarding them. When Wu Juanhao rushed out, Lian Meng's beautiful eyes flashed with a sharp light. Her jade-like feet touched the void, and she appeared in front of Wu Juanhao as if she had teleported. At the same time, Lian Meng's jade-like hands formed a palm and suddenly blasted out. Instantly, the powerful reincarnation power formed a yin-yang fish, which swept out and blasted in front of Wu Juanhao. Bang! Wu Juanhao obviously did not expect Lian Meng to suddenly attack. He was caught off guard and was hit by the yin-yang fish. However, Wu Juanhao's reaction was extremely fast. Although the yin-yang fish was close at hand and he couldn't dodge it, he still formed a palm with both hands and pushed it out fiercely. The terrifying palm force was like a ripple that quickly spread out. Bang! The yin-yang fish collapsed. Wu Juanhao grunted and retreated dozens of steps before he could stop. The 2 powerful sorcerer tribesmen, who had been following closely behind Wu Juanhao, stopped and looked at Lian Meng with unfriendly gazes. Wu Juanhao's face was gloomy. He looked at Lian Meng with slight anger and said, "Fairy Lian Meng, what do you mean by this? Are you going against me?" Lian Meng's beautiful eyes were calm as she said flatly, "Wu Juanhao, I've already told you, this person is from my Sanqing Street. I told you not to act recklessly." Wu Juanhao sneered and continued, "Act recklessly? Fairy Lian Meng, What you said is inappropriate. This nameless rogue cultivator has been in the limelight in the heaven-accessing secret land recently, and he even dared to kill Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao from my Wu Tower. Isn't it perfectly justified for me to teach him a lesson for killing a member of the Wu Tower so brazenly? Lian Meng furrowed her brows and sighed. Wu Juanhao, give me face. If you leave now, I will owe you a favor. Wu Junhao shook his head and said coldly, I must kill this man today. Fairy, Lian Meng, it is useless even if you try to stop me. Speaking of this, Wu Juanhao said to the two powerhouses behind him, Wu Yangshu, Wu Mingzhi, you guys go and kill that nameless rogue cultivator. I will hold off Fairy Lian Meng. After he finished speaking, Wu Juanhao fiercely stomped with his right foot, causing surging waves of air to surge out from under his feet. Instantly, he shot towards Lian Meng like an arrow that had left the bow. His speed was extremely fast, and wave after wave of terrifying air waves exploded out from behind him. Lian Meng's beautiful eyes flickered slightly. Her slender jade-like hands blasted out. The power of reincarnation continuously surged, forming numerous black and white Dao runes. Wu Juanhao, on the other hand, emitted a blazing white light from his body. Like a white sun, he instantly collided with Lian Meng. Boom, boom, boom. The two of them clashed, causing a huge explosion in the starry sky. Terrifying energy ripples exploded outwards. It was extremely terrifying. Although Lian Meng was young, her cultivation was very strong. Her cultivation had already reached the second blight. Coupled with the powerful reincarnation power, she was able to fight against a peak second blight expert like Wu Juanhao. Wu Yangshu and Wu Mingzhi saw Wu Juanhao being entangled by Lian Meng. The two of them looked at each other and tacitly continued to rush towards Zhuowen. Brother Du, help me hold them off. I will owe you a favor. Lian Meng saw Wu Yangshu and Wu Mingzhi continue to rush towards Zhuowen. She gritted her teeth and could only ask Du Huacan, who was not far away. Du Huacan was originally hesitant to help Lian Meng. Now that Lian Meng said this, he gritted his teeth and acted. Boom! Terrifying blade qi soared into the sky and fiercely blasted towards Wu Yangshu and Wu Mingzhi. Wu Yangshu and Wu Mingzhi had long been paying attention to Du Huacan. At this moment, when they saw Du Huacan act decisively, the two of them immediately stopped and blasted out their own attacks, instantly crushing the blade qi in front of them. Mingzhi, leave this person to me. You go and destroy that nameless rogue cultivator. The red-skinned man from the sorcerer tribe said to the blue-skinned man from the sorcerer tribe. Terrifying energy ripples burst out from his body, and he directly fought with Du Huacan. Du Huacan was helpless. Although he had just reached the second blight, whether it was Wu Mingzhi or Wu Yangshu, their cultivation was not weaker than his. In fact, they were even stronger than him. With Du Huacan's strength, it was impossible for him to stop the two of them. Wu Mingzhi did not even look at Du Huacan and directly rushed towards Zhuowen. His right hand formed a fist, and a blazing fist light burst out from it. It was very dazzling. Nameless rogue cultivator, you're dead meat. Wu Mingzhi looked at Zhuowen, who was getting closer and closer. The killing intent in his eyes was almost tangible, and at the same time, there was a hint of ecstasy in his eyes. He knew very well that if he killed this person with his own hands, it would definitely be a great achievement. When the time came, the Tower Master of the Wu Tower, Wu Taiji, would definitely reward him generously. At this moment, Zhuowen stood in the same place. He raised his head and looked into the depths of the chaotic starry sky. He was in a daze and did not realize that Wu Mingzhi was approaching him. The onlookers shook their heads and sighed. They knew that the nameless rogue cultivator was dead meat. Wu Mingzhi was a powerhouse of the Wu Tower. His cultivation had reached the second blight, and his strength was extraordinary. How could the nameless rogue cultivator be a match for Wu Mingzhi? Moreover, Zhuowen's appearance was clearly misunderstood by the onlookers, as he was frozen in shock. Ha ha, die! Wu Mingzhi was already close to Zhuowen. His fist aura that was ready to attack became more and more intense. It was like a small sun and was really terrifying. Wu Mingzhi did not doubt that Zhuowen would definitely die if his fist hit him. Boom, boom, boom. However, the moment Wu Mingzhi threw out his fist aura, he immediately felt that something was wrong. A strong sense of foreboding rose in his heart. Then, he realized that in the depths of the chaotic starry sky, there was a terrifying golden energy pouring down. The golden energy was in the shape of swords. They were like peerless divine, swords that poured down like rain. Suddenly, the golden sword rain completely drowned Wu Mingzhi. Wu Mingzhi changed his fist aura and began to block in front of him. He wanted to block the terrifying golden sword rain. However, he soon realized that the golden sword rain was too strange and terrifying. His fist aura was completely destroyed, and his body gradually melted in the golden sword rain. Gangjin's sword rain? How is this possible? This is a tribulation that only appears when a cultivator is undergoing the third blight. This guy is only at the first blight. Why would the Gangjin sword rain come? Before Wu Mingzhi's body was completely melted, he finally let out an unwilling roar. However, after saying this, he became completely silent. His entire body was annihilated by the gunmetal sword rain and disappeared without a trace. Lian Meng, Wu Juanhao, Wu Yangshu, and Du Huacan, who were originally fighting, were also frightened by the sudden appearance of the Gangjin sword rain and stopped fighting. All the onlookers were dumbfounded. Their eyes were wide open as if they had seen an unbelievable scene. What the hell is going on? Is this guy really undergoing the first blight? Wu Yangshu's body trembled as he muttered to himself with a shocked expression. Du Huacan did not answer him because he was also frightened by the sudden appearance of the Gangjin sword rain. Chapter 3474. Advancing to the first decay? Humph. Looks like we don't need to do anything. This kid is dead for sure. Wu Juanhao retreated a distance away. His main goal was Zhuowen and not to compete with Lian Meng. Lian Meng's beautiful eyes were filled with anxiety. She had come to find Zhuowen for an important matter. Now that Zhuowen had died in front of her, it would be difficult for her to explain to the three pure ones. Wu Yangshu retreated to Wu Juanhao's side and said with a gloomy expression, Juanhao, Mingzhi, it's fine. Mingzhi died for a reason. At least this person has been killed, and we can explain it to the Tower Master. Now, let's wait for the Gangjin sword rain to end and see if we can find Mingzhi's corpse. Wu Juanhao said indifferently. Wu Yangshu remained silent when he heard this, but his expression was ugly. He had a good relationship with Wu Mingzhi, and they had gone through fire and water together several times. Now that Wu Mingzhi had died in the Gangjin sword rain, he felt that it wasn't worth it for Wu Mingzhi. However, he was helpless. Wu Juanhao was stronger than him, and his position in the tower was much higher than his. He couldn't refute Wu Juanhao's words. The surroundings were completely silent as numerous gazes descended onto the seventh metal sword rain. They were all waiting for the seventh metal sword rain to end. They wanted to see if that nameless independent cultivator would be able to survive such a terrifying calamity. Within the endless Gangjin sword rain, Purple light surged around Zhuowen's body as he barely resisted the terrifying Gung Jin sword rain. It had to be said that the Gung Jin sword rain was indeed terrifying. It had the power to destroy everything. Zhuowen circulated the primordial chant with all his strength, but he was still injured. His right arm was destroyed and blood flowed out. Puchi! Suddenly, Zhuowen's left arm shattered and blood splattered everywhere. Zhuowen's eyes were red. He knew that he was in a life and death crisis. He began to madly absorb the primal chaos energy and used his shattered divine power to form a purple light. It turned into a powerful defense that covered his body. As time passed, Zhuowen's injuries became more and more serious. Blood flowed out of his wounds, and his body was covered in blood. Puchi! Puchi! The Gung Jin sword rain became more and more terrifying. Zhuowen's legs also exploded, and a mist of blood burst out. Zhuowen couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood, his face pale. However, he didn't care about that. Instead, he madly circulated the primordial technique and absorbed the chaotic energy to protect the most important parts of his body and head. About 4 hours later, Zhuowen's body completely exploded, turning into a bloody mist. Only a head with a pale face was left. However, there was no fear in Zhuowen's eyes. Instead, they were filled with sharpness and sharpness. This was because he could feel that the Gung metal sword rain was weakening. He knew that the Gung metal sword rain was about to disappear. Sure enough, the 7th metal sword rain was rapidly weakening, and it quickly became sparse. Then, Zhuowen felt a surge of warm energy from the depths of the chaotic cosmos. This energy continuously healed his injuries, and his body, which was only left with his head, began to rapidly regenerate. At the same time, the aura on his body had completely transformed. He could feel the surging energy in his body, filling his entire body. He knew that he had successfully passed the first blight and advanced to the first blight. In less than 10 breaths of time, Zhuowen's body had been completely healed by this energy, and Zhuowen's aura had also completely transformed, undergoing a qualitative change. At this moment, everyone's eyes fell on Zhuowen's body at the same time. They all sucked in a breath of cold air. The entire place was terrifyingly quiet. However, this silence didn't last for long before it was replaced by an uproar. Heavens! This nameless rogue cultivator actually didn't die and passed the terrifying 7th metal sword rain. How is this possible? He successfully advanced to the first blight. Didn't you notice that this person's aura is terrifyingly powerful? It doesn't seem like a first blight cultivator at all. The sounds of discussion, uproar, and clamor gathered together, making the surroundings very noisy. Lian Meng revealed a look of pleasant surprise, but Wu Juanhao's eyes were gloomy. He was also deeply surprised that Zhuowen could survive the 7th metal sword rain. Yangshu, kill him! Wu Juanhao sent a voice transmission to Wu Yangshu. The latter nodded, took a step with his right foot, and instantly disappeared. Wu Yangshu's smile became colder and colder, and the killing intent in his eyes was almost undisguised. Wu Mingzhi had died because of Zhuowen, so he couldn't wait to kill this Zhuowen and avenge Wu Mingzhi. Wu Yangshu's speed was too fast, and he caught them off guard. By the time Lian Meng and Du Huacan reacted, they found that it was too late to catch up. At this moment, Zhuowen had completely recovered. Feeling the powerful energy surging in his body, his eyes revealed a look of pleasant surprise. With his first blight cultivation and the broken god power from the Grand Mist chant, Zhuowen was confident that his strength was comparable to a peak second blight cultivator. If he fused with his avatar, his strength would rise to another level, and he would be able to fight against a third blight cultivator. Especially the broken god power in his body. Its penetrative power was too terrifying, and the level of energy was very high. Cultivators from the lower realms would be at a disadvantage if they fought against him. Zhuo Wen seemed to sense a murderous intent. He looked up and saw that Wu Yangshu had already arrived. A terrifying aura swept out like a storm. Which race? Zhuo Wen calmly looked at Wu Yangshu, who was getting closer and closer, and asked lightly. Wu Yangshu was startled before he sneered. Wu Yangshu, a member of the Witch Tower. Today, I'm here to take your dog life. With that, Wu Yangshu suddenly threw a punch. The moment the punch was thrown, space itself exploded and shattered. It looked very terrifying. This child is really pitiful. He just reached the first blight, and he's going to be killed. Wu Juanhao crossed his arms and coldly looked on as he mocked. A member of the Witch Tower? Looks like you're here to die. Then I'll fulfill your wish. Zhuo Wen was very calm as he threw a punch. The purple light was restrained, and it looked ordinary, but it contained terrifying energy. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The two fists collided, and a large explosion was set off. Then, Wu Yangshu was shocked to find that his right fist was directly shattered by the punch. In particular, the mysterious energy from Zhuo Wen's fist had burrowed into his body and actually began to wantonly destroy his meridians. Even if he used most of his heavenly way energy, he would still be unable to disperse the mysterious energy in his meridians. Puchi, Wu Yangshu coughed out a mouthful of blood. His right hand shattered, and blood splattered out in all directions. He flew backwards and landed in space. However, not long after Wu Yangshu flew out, he felt a sharp pain in his chest. There was a foot directly stepping on his chest. Wu Yangshu was shocked and angry. He spat out blood and felt humiliated. Chapter 3475. Wu Juanhao's arrogance. A mere human ant dares to step on me. Wu Yangshu roared angrily. He felt too humiliated. He should have been the one to crush the human cultivator in front of him, but he didn't expect that he would be defeated in one move. He was even trampled under the other's feet and humiliated wantonly. Wu Yangshu was enraged. He immediately burned his essence blood, and a terrifying aura surged from his body. He wanted to kill Zhuo Wen at all costs. I wanted to give you a way out, but you want to die. Fine, I'll fulfill your wish. Zhuo Wen's eyes were cold. He grabbed Wu Yangshu's collar and threw him into the air. Then he punched his chest. Puchi, Puchi. Wu Yangshu's waist was like a cooked shrimp as he arched. His chest was directly penetrated and even turned into dust. Blood mist flew everywhere. It was really miserable. However, Wu Yangshu was still burning his essence blood. He wanted to break out of this situation. At least, he had to escape from Zhuo Wen's evil clutches first. Unfortunately, Zhuo Wen wouldn't give him the chance. He opened his right hand and slammed it between Wu Yangshu's eyebrows. It was very fast, and purple light erupted. Powerful broken divine power invaded Wu Yangshu's forehead and directly exploded in the depths of Wu Yangshu's divine soul. Wu Yangshu's forehead exploded and blood spurted out. His body twitched and finally fell to the ground, motionless, after Wu Yangshu was slapped to death by Zhuo Wen's palm. Everyone quieted down. They couldn't believe it. Wu Yangshu, who was already at the second blight, was killed just like that. It was done cleanly and without the slightest hesitation. Lian Meng and Du Huaqian were also shocked. They didn't expect Zhuo Wen to be so fierce. He had just entered the first blight and had already killed a second blight powerhouse. And from the looks of it, it didn't take much effort for him to kill Wu Yangshu. He was even more monstrous than Wu Juanhao. Back then, Wu Juanhao had just entered the first blight and had only killed a peak first blight powerhouse. Wu Juanhao's pupils shrank. He was also stunned. Wu Yangshu was killed just like that. This was something he didn't expect. Are the people from the Wu Tower a bunch of trash? Why are you so weak? Zhuowen clapped his hands as his gaze fell upon Wu Juanhao. The corners of his mouth were filled with mockery. Although he had been undergoing the tribulation earlier, he was aware of everything that had happened around him. Wu Juanhao and Wu Yangshu, who he had just killed, were both experts from the Wu Tower. They had been sent by Wu Taiji to kill him. Now that his cultivation had broken through the first blight, he could stand firm even in the heaven accessing place. He was not afraid of the Wu Tower now, unless the Wizard Tower sent out a terrifying fourth or fifth blight expert, but he knew that such an expert wouldn't come out easily. On top of that, the Wu Tower was restrained by the Three Purities Palace. If the Wu Tower really sent out such an expert, the Three Purities Palace would not sit by and do nothing. And even if the Wu Lu was really shameless and sent out fourth and fifth blight powerhouses, Zhuowen wasn't afraid. Although he wasn't a match for them now, he had a heaven-breaking divine weapon. If he was forced into a corner, he would activate the 9 Tribulations sword formation to kill the enemy, even if he was seriously injured. At the same time, Zhuowen also discovered that after his spiritual transformed, the spiritual sword essence that he had condensed was very powerful. It was purple in color as it floated in his spiritual soul. Although he hadn't tested the power of the god's soul sword intent, he knew that if he used it now, even fourth and fifth blight cultivators would have to be wary. Of course, after his spiritual transformed, it wasn't easy to condense such a powerful spiritual sword essence. He had only condensed one spiritual sword essence, and it was his final trump card. When Wu Juanhao heard Zhuowen's mocking words, the veins on his forehead bulged. He could no longer control the murderous intent in his eyes, and it poured out. You are courting death. You killed my Wu Tower's people one after another, and you didn't even realize your mistake. Now, in my eyes, you are already a corpse. Wu Juanhao stepped forward step by step. The moment he stepped out, the aura on his body continued to surge and become more and more intense. At this moment, Wu Juanhao was too dazzling. The aura that erupted from his body seemed to be able to crush everything. Lian Meng and Du Huatsan's expressions changed slightly. They realized that Wu Juanhao hadn't used his full strength in the battle with Lian Meng. Many of the surrounding cultivators were also in an uproar. They knew that Wu Juanhao had become serious. As expected of Wu Juanhao, although he is only at the peak of the second blight, his powerful aura has probably far surpassed that of a second blight powerhouse. That's right. You have to know that when Wu Juanhao had just advanced to the first blight, he had already killed a peak first blight powerhouse. Now that his cultivation is at the peak of the second blight, his strength is definitely comparable to an early stage third blight cultivator. Everyone discussed spiritedly. Their gazes were filled with pity when they looked at Zhuowen. Although the scene of Zhuowen easily killing Wu Yangshu had completely stunned everyone, Wu Juanhao was not Wu Yangshu. He was much stronger than Wu Yangshu. In this battle, everyone still didn't think highly of Zhuowen. They felt that Zhuowen would lose without a doubt. Lian Meng was about to rush to Zhuowen's side, but she was stopped by Zhuowen. Zhuowen secretly transmitted his voice to Lian Meng. Junior sister Lian Meng, you don't have to interfere in this battle. I have no problem dealing with this Wu Juanhao. Lian Meng replied worriedly, Senior brother Zhua, this Wu Juanhao is not ordinary. His strength is much stronger than his cultivation. I'm afraid you might not be able to deal with him now. Junior sister Lian Meng, let me try first. If I'm really not his match, then you can help me. Zhuowen was helpless. He could only comfort Lian Meng like this. To be honest, he was very confident in his own strength. He really wanted to test how strong his main body was, and Wu Juanhao was the best whetstone for him. Since Zhuowen had said so, Lian Meng could only nod her head and no longer interfere with Zhuowen. It seems that you two are old acquaintances. I thought that you and Fairy Lian Meng would join forces to fight me. Wu Juanhao had his hands behind his back. He naturally noticed the sound waves between Zhuowen and Lian Meng and couldn't help but sneer. To deal with you, I don't need Fairy Lian Meng to do anything. I can crush you to death, Zhuowen said calmly. Creak. Wu Juanhao clenched his fists so hard that cracking sounds could be heard. His gaze became even more unfriendly as he looked at Zhuowen. You really don't know fear and arrogance. If you want to crush me to death, you can't just say it, no matter how fancy your words are. When the time comes, you will only be tortured even more miserably by me. By the way, you can rest assured that I won't kill you so quickly. Instead, I will torture you to death until you feel that death is better than living and kneel in front of me to beg for death. Only then will I kill you. Enjoy your last moments. As Wu Juanhao spoke, he took out a large blade that emitted a green glow. This large blade was very long, and the blade's surface was carved with all kinds of strange beasts. They looked ferocious and terrifying, and they seemed to be able to jump out of the blade. Chapter 3476. Instant kill. No wonder he is the most talented genius in the Wu Tower. Even his heart is so broad. He did not take advantage of the nameless rogue cultivator and let him make the first move. Wu Juanhao is really a role model for our generation. Haha, this is the demeanor of an expert. Of course, I think that even if the nameless rogue cultivator made the first move, he would still die. He is no match for Wu Juanhao. Wu Juanhao's words made many of the surrounding cultivators look at him with admiration. They felt that Wu Juanhao was very gentlemanly. Zhuowen looked at him strangely and asked, You really want me to make the first move? Wu Juanhao looked at Zhuowen from the corner of his eyes. The aura on his body was vast and terrifying. His voice was full of authority as he said, Humph! This is the only chance I'm giving you, because you're going to die a humiliating death later. This is your last chance to perform. Zhuowen laughed. His laughter was full of mockery. Then, the purple soul sword essence in his spiritual soul suddenly shot out. In an instant, it pierced through the chaotic starry sky and rushed towards Wu Juanhao's forehead. Zhuowen was still standing at the same spot and looked at Wu Juanhao indifferently. Originally, he had wanted to have a good fight with Wu Juanhao to test the true strength of his original body. Unfortunately, Wu Juanhao was too pretentious. He actually gave Zhuowen a chance to make the first move. Well then, Zhuowen did not hold back and directly blasted out the soul sword essence. This was the first time he had used the soul sword essence since his spiritual soul had transformed. Even he did not know how strong the soul sword essence was. He might as well let the arrogant Wu Juanhao be his guinea pig. Wu Juanhao was aloof. He looked at Zhuowen with his nose up as if he was looking down on Zhuowen. Many of the foreign race cultivators clapped their hands and cheered for Wu Juanhao. They felt that Wu Juanhao was too gentlemanly, and their mouths were full of praises. But soon, Wu Juanhao's face changed. His face became even more ferocious and twitching. The soul sword essence was already very close. Wu Juanhao felt the danger and quickly retreated. You actually noticed? Unfortunately, you're not fast enough. When Zhuowen saw Wu Juanhao constantly retreating, the mocking smile on his face deepened. With a thought, the purple soul sword essence instantly rushed into the depths of Wu Juanhao's forehead. spiritual attacks were formless and incorporeal to begin with. Since outsiders could not sense it, they naturally could not see it. However, there were still some cultivators with sharp divine senses who sensed the aura of the spiritual soul sword intent. Their expressions changed slightly and became very serious. Ah! Wu Junhao screamed in agony. His face was completely distorted as he clutched his head and rolled on the ground. His voice was too shrill, like a pig being slaughtered. Puchi! In the end, Wu Junhao spat out a mouthful of blood. His body twitched, and his aura slowly dissipated. Finally, he was completely motionless. Zhuowen looked at the motionless Wu Junhao and heaved a sigh of relief. His heart was filled with bitterness. Just now, when he used the divine soul sword intent, he had consumed a lot of his divine soul, and now he had a splitting headache. However, the power of the divine soul sword intent was beyond Zhuowen's expectations. It was actually so powerful that Wu Junhao's divine soul was directly destroyed. I should use the divine soul sword intent less in the future. It consumes too much of my divine soul sword intent. Zhuowen smiled bitterly and warned himself in his heart that he definitely could not abuse this move. At this moment, the entire place fell silent. The onlooking cultivators were all confused. Wu Junhao had his hands behind his back just now, saying that he would let Zhuowen have a move first. He had the demeanor of a powerful expert. However, in the next moment, this Wu Junhao who was acting tough collapsed to the ground and died. What was going on? At this moment, Zhuowen endured his headache and walked over to Wu Junhao's corpse as if nothing had happened. He kicked it impolitely and said, "He actually died just like that? Could it be that he was scared to death because he was afraid of being beaten to death by me?" The surrounding cultivators, who had already recovered from their shock, were petrified again after hearing Zhuowen's words. Scared to death? Was there a mistake? This was Wu Junhao, the most outstanding half-step heaven-crushing cultivator of the Wu Tower. How could he be scared to death? However, when everyone saw Zhuowen stomp on Wu Junhao's body, the latter still did not move, and they knew that Wu Junhao had indeed died. However, the way he died was far too strange. However, the cultivators with sharp divine senses from before all had grave expressions. Their eyes were filled with fear and reverence as they looked at Zhuowen. They knew that if their senses were not wrong, this nameless itinerant cultivator should have used some kind of powerful divine soul attack to directly destroy Wu Junhao's divine soul. Meanwhile, Lian Meng and Du Huatsan's expressions changed slightly. They were the most powerful people here, and in the instant that Zhuowen used the divine soul sword intent just now, they had already sensed its terrifying power. However, never would they have thought that Wu Junhao would be insta-killed. This divine soul attack was far too terrifying. Zhuowen kicked Wu Junhao's corpse a few more times, and then unceremoniously took Wu Junhao's spirit ring. He did not blush in the slightest. "Junior sister, Lian Meng, did you specially come to find me?" Zhuowen flicked his finger, and a burst of divine flame burst forth, setting Wu Junhao's corpse on fire. After burning it to ashes, he descended beside Lian Meng and asked with a bright gaze. Lian Meng nodded and said, "Senior brother, I indeed have something to discuss with you. However, there are too many people here, so it's inconvenient to talk." Speaking up to hear, Lian Meng pointed at Du Huacan and said, "Senior brother, this person is Saber Tyrant Du Huacan of the 3 Purities Street. He's a famous half-step heaven-crushing cultivator." Saber Tyrant Du Huacan hurriedly stepped forward and bowed toward Zhuowen, saying, "I'm Du Huacan. May I know your name?" "I'm Zhuowen." Zhuowen replied with a faint smile. "So it's fellow Taoist, Zhua. Speaking of which, fellow Taoist, Zhua's strength is truly unprecedented. That Wu Juanhao was at the peak of the second blight, but he was insta-killed by fellow Daoist Zhua. Truly impressive. Saber Tyrant Du Huacan gave Zhuowen a thumbs up. His eyes were filled with admiration. Zhuowen naturally replied modestly. After chatting for a while, he discovered that Du Huacan was quite forthright and straightforward. This made Zhuowen have a good impression of him. Lian Meng clasped her hands toward Du Huacan and said, "Brother Du, senior brother Zhua, and I still have some important matters to discuss, so we won't stay any longer. Let's part ways here." Du Huacan naturally didn't have the face to continue chatting with Zhuowen and Lian Meng. He smiled and silently watched as Zhuowen and Lian Meng transformed into a streak of light and flew into the distance on their flying divine tool. The smile on Du Huacan's face gradually disappeared. His expression became very grave as he looked at the terrifying ruins around him. He knew that after today, the nameless itinerant cultivator's reputation would most likely become even greater. 3 second blight cultivators of the Wu Tower, one of whom was the extremely famous prodigy, Wu Juanhao, had all died at the hands of this nameless itinerant cultivator. This was an unprecedented event. If the Tower Lord of the Wu Tower, Wu Taiji, heard this news, his lungs would probably explode from anger. Next, the heaven-accessing realm won't be peaceful. Chapter 3477, God-slaying ground bang. In the Wu Tower, Wu Taiji smashed the desk in front of him. His face was extremely gloomy. He had already received the news of Wu Juanhao and the other two's deaths. At this moment, his heart was filled with rage, and he could barely suppress it. Wu Xiangjuan stood to the side, her beautiful eyes filled with fear. She didn't dare to speak. Of course, Wu Xiangjuan was as furious as Wu Taiji. Wu Juanhao and the other two were all second blight elites. Wu Juanhao was at the peak of the second blight, and his strength was comparable to an ordinary third blight elite. Yet they were all annihilated. Was Zhuowen really that strong? Taiji, that Zhuowen is really strange. He actually knows how to attack the soul. Wu Juanhao didn't have any injuries, but his soul was destroyed. Wu Xiangjuan saw that Wu Taiji's anger had completely subsided, and she spoke again, mentioning Wu Juanhao. "I underestimated that Zhuowen. I didn't expect him to have such a trump card. Even Wu Juanhao was destroyed by him." Wu Taiji frowned. That Zhuowen disappeared again. After this, he will probably hide. It won't be easy to find him again. What should we do next? Wu Xiangjuan sighed. Can't find him? Not necessarily. As Wu Taiji spoke, he opened his right hand and a purple sword chi floated in his palm. This sword chi was illusory and didn't have a physical body. This is... Wu Xiangjuan's beautiful eyes narrowed. This sword chi is formed by the soul. I found it in Wu Juanhao's shattered soul. If I hadn't arrived in time, this sword chi would have been destroyed. I think you should be able to guess that the owner of this sword chi is Zhuowen, and Wu Juanhao's soul was destroyed by this sword chi. This sword chi contains Zhuowen's aura. As long as I have this in my hands, that Zhuowen won't be able to escape. Wu Taiji stared at the purple sword chi in his palm, and a sinister smile appeared on his face. Wu Xiangjuan's beautiful eyes were solemn as she cautiously said, "Taiji, don't tell me you want to use that method. That price is too high. It's nothing compared to the complete heaven-breaching technique." Wu Taiji said calmly, "In an asteroid belt, in the chaotic starry sky, in the northwest of the heaven-accessing place. On the opposite side of the asteroid belt, there was a huge black hole. The black hole was huge, and it spun continuously. The planets around it spun along with it, and then they were all swallowed by the black hole. This place was called the God-slaying land. It was a very famous and dangerous place in the heaven accessing place. Any heaven-piercing cultivator who entered this place would definitely die. Even half-step heaven-crushing cultivators had a very high chance of dying if they weren't careful enough. Furthermore, there weren't many good things in the god-slaying land. The price-performance ratio was much lower than the chaotic valley. As such, there were basically no heaven-piercing cultivators who came to explore the god-slaying land. Even half-step heaven-crushing cultivators rarely came to explore the god-slaying land. After all, the losses outweighed the gains. At this moment, Lian Meng controlled her flying divine tool and stopped near the god-slaying land. Zhuowen stood on the deck of the flying divine tool and looked at Lian Meng in confusion. He didn't understand why Lian Meng would stop at the god-slaying land. "Senior Martial Brother, Zhua, Master sent me to find you." Lian Meng turned around. Her beautiful eyes focused on Zhuowen as she said with a smile. Zhuowen's brows furrowed slightly. In reality, he didn't have a good impression of the three pure ones. He was slightly disappointed that Lian Meng was sent by the three pure ones. "Why did the three pure ones send you to find me?" Zhuowen asked calmly. Lian Meng looked at Zhuowen with her beautiful eyes and sighed softly. "Senior Martial Brother Zhua, you might have misunderstood Master. Everything he does is for the sake of this starry sky and to defend against the impending chaotic disaster." "I know that. However, the three pure ones and I are on different paths now. I have my own path to walk, and he has his own goals. I don't like to walk the path he planned for me. It makes me feel very passive." Zhuowen said indifferently. From Heavenly Armor Star to the 8 heavens, Zhuowen's path was indeed planned by the three pure ones. It was only after Zhuowen transcended the 8 heavens and entered Xian Mi heavenly domain that he broke free from part of the three pure ones' influence. Zhuowen didn't want to walk the path of a chess piece again. He naturally didn't want to get too close to the three pure ones. Lian Meng saw Zhuowen's determined appearance and sighed softly. She knew that even if she continued to persuade Zhuowen, he wouldn't change his mind. "Master sent me to find you to provide you with the whereabouts of the other 2 ancestral shaman parasites," Lian Meng said. The whereabouts of the other 2 ancestral shaman parasites. Zhuowen was startled and looked at Lian Meng. Lian Meng raised her lily-white hand and directly handed over 2 jade slips to Zhuowen. These jade slips record the whereabouts of the other 2 ancestral shaman parasites. One of them is in the depths of the god-slaying land. However, it's very dangerous there. Master said that the places where these 2 ancestral voodoo goo worms are located are all dangerous places with a high chance of survival. You don't need to be in a hurry. Wait until you are stronger, then you can explore. Of course, if you feel that it's really dangerous, you can choose not to go." Lian Meng said. Zhuowen put away the jade slips, nodded, and said, "Junior sister, Lian Meng, I'll accept this jade slips. I've troubled you to come this time." After speaking, Zhuowen no longer spoke. Instead, he rushed towards the huge black hole in front of him. His eyes were filled with regret. When he first saw Lian Meng at the entrance of the heaven-accessing secret land, he thought that Lian Meng had completely recovered. Now he discovered that he was wrong. Lian Meng was still under the control of the three pure ones. He even doubted whether Lian Meng still had her own will. Lian Meng silently looked at Zhuowen's back. She didn't speak. The concern in her eyes had already disappeared and was replaced by indifference. When Zhuowen was about several 100,000 li away from the black hole, a powerful gravitational force acted on his body and continuously pulled him towards the depths of the black hole. Zhuowen stopped and quickly retreated. Only after he left the range of the gravitational force did he stop. At this moment, he discovered that Lian Meng, who was originally standing behind him, had disappeared. He knew that Lian Meng should have returned to report. He shook his head and no longer thought about Lian Meng. Instead, he looked at the black hole in front of him with a grave expression. Let's try using my doppelganger. When Zhuowen received Lian Meng's jade slip, he used his divine sense to read the contents of the jade slip. It specifically mentioned that it was best to use the Pangu's sacred body. When exploring, Zhuowen left his main body and the great world outside the black hole in a safe range. Soon after, his doppelganger, dressed in a black robe, began to approach the black hole in front of him. The gravitational force actually disappeared. When Zhuowen approached the black hole, he discovered in surprise that his doppelganger didn't feel the powerful gravitational force at all. It was completely light. It seems that it's because my doppelganger is the Pangu's sacred body. Chapter 3478. Perfecting the Primordial Mantra Thump. Thump. Zhuowen kicked out with his right foot and rushed into the depths of the black hole like a bolt of black lightning. The black hole was huge and pitch black. Even with Zhuowen's divine sense, he could not probe any further. He could only probe a few thousand meters. In the end, Zhuowen gave up on probing with his divine sense. Instead, he used the torch dragon's eyes, which broadened his vision. He looked around and found that he was close to the entrance of the black hole. The shattered planets around him were sucked into the depths of the black hole and eventually crushed into dust. He looked into the depths of the black hole. There, he could feel a mysterious power crushing and annihilating everything that approached it. He knew very well that if he were to get close to the mysterious force, he would be severely injured or even crushed. Zhuowen took out the jade slip and carefully looked at the map of the land of Deicide. Soon, he locked onto a white dot near the depths of the black hole. Upon closer inspection, the white dot was a white vortex that surged with powerful vitality. Zhuowen could tell at a glance that the white dot was the entrance to a space. If the information in the jade slip given by junior sister Lian Meng is correct, then the space inside the white dot is the corpse of a witch ancestor. Zhuowen said as he slowly approached the white dot. Boom, boom. As he approached the white dot, Zhuowen immediately felt a terrifying, crushing force acting on his body, causing countless sparks to burst out from his body. As Zhuowen went deeper, the injuries on his body became more and more serious. He was dripping with blood, almost turning into a bloody man. When Zhuowen arrived at the white dot, his arms were broken and his body was covered with dense and terrifying wounds. Blood flowed all over his body, making him look miserable. After entering the white dot, Zhuowen felt a blazing white light appear in front of his eyes. Then a powerful vitality entered his body and quickly healed his broken body. Zhuowen lay on the ground and took a deep breath. After lying there for a long time, he got up. He realized that the small world he was in was surrounded by white light. It was a white world. The only thing that was clear was the incomparably huge figure floating in the air. This figure floated in the air. Its face was like a human's, its ears like a dog's, and its body like a beast. 2 green snakes coiled around its ears. Looking at the human-faced, dog-eared figure, Zhuowen recognized that it was none other than Shebi Shur, one of the 12 ancestral shamans. The Shibite corpse's eyes were closed, and his expression was serene. The space around Zhuowen was filled with the Shibite corpse's pressure and powerful aura. However, this pressure simply paled in comparison to the pressure of the chaotic starry sky. Zhuowen leaped and landed on the chest of Shebi's corpse. At the same time, he activated the other goo worms in his Pan-Goo sacred body and began to sense the goo worms hidden in Shebi's corpse. Soon, Zhuowen sensed something. His right hand formed into a claw and slammed into the Shebi corpse's abdomen. Whoosh! The moment the Shebi corpse's abdomen was shattered, a shadow instantly swept out. It was so fast that it almost formed a series of afterimages in the air. When this shadow appeared, the space filled with white light was filled with wind, fire, thunder, and other terrifying weather. It was as if this white space had suddenly become a world of unpredictable weather. Come here. Shwa, Wen's gaze was like a torch as he stretched out his right hand, causing terrifying energy to explode out. The escaping image wanted to resist, but how could it be a match for Zhuo? As soon as it tried to resist, it was suppressed by Zhuo. Zhuo opened his right palm. In his palm, the Shibai corpse worm was struggling violently and making strange, squeaking noises. It could be said that the Shibai corpse worm was very restless. Zhuo fiercely slapped the Shibai corpse worm a few times. The powerful palm force formed a terrifying wind. The Shibai corpse worm was beaten until it screamed and screamed again and again. In the end, it succumbed to Zhuo's tyrannical power. After completely subduing the Shibai corpse worm, Zhuo did not immediately absorb it. Instead, he took it with him and left this space. His doppelganger had just obtained the corpse of Tianwu, one of the 12 ancestral sorcerers, and had not completely absorbed the Tianwu corpse worm. Naturally, he could not absorb the Shibai corpse worm now. After leaving the black hole, the doppelganger met up with the original body. After the two exchanged a look, the doppelganger took the Shibai corpse worm into the big world and began to cultivate in seclusion. Zhuo estimated that if he completely absorbed these two worms, his Pango's sacred body would undergo an earth-shaking transformation. It was very likely that his Pango's sacred body would directly break through to the mid-9 star stage, and his strength would increase to a terrifying level. Zhuo opened another jade slip. This jade slip recorded the corpse of another ancestral sorcerer. It was located in a place called Nightmare Abyss. This dangerous place was very famous. It was even more dangerous than the god-slaying land. Many experts had died there. However, the Nightmare Abyss was much more popular than the god-slaying land. Although the Nightmare Abyss was dangerous, there were all kinds of treasures in it. Because of this, there was no lack of desperados who would risk their lives to search for treasures. Zhuo did not plan to go to the Nightmare Abyss now. Instead, he found a floating broken planet near the black hole in the god-slaying land. He entered the core of the broken planet and opened up a very spacious cave residence. At the same time, he set up complicated and powerful restriction formations around the cave residence. This place was too remote, and it was close to the edge of the heaven accessing place. He could absorb a lot of chaotic energy to cultivate. He planned to cultivate in seclusion for a period of time. His original body of the human clan had just reached the first blight, and he planned to consolidate his realm. His doppelganger would integrate the two ancestral sorcerer venomous worms as soon as possible to upgrade his Pango's sacred body to the mid-9 star stage. At that time, Zhuo's strength would undergo an earth-shattering transformation. Even a fourth blight cultivator wouldn't be able to do anything to him. Moreover, his divine soul had been transformed by the primordial stone, and he had a unique and terrifying comprehension ability. His current cultivation speed was simply unprecedented. If it were not for the fact that Zhuo wanted to lay a good foundation, his original body would have no problem breaking through again in a short time. If the three Pure Ones and Wu Taiji knew about Zhuo's cultivation speed, it would cause a sensation. Even the three Pure Ones and Wu Taiji would not believe it. Zhuo knew very well that his original body of the human clan was his ultimate secret. His cultivation level could not be revealed. For this reason, Zhuo planned to use the primordial skills as a foundation, and based on the primordial skills in his mind to derive the function of concealing his cultivation level. This was because the primordial technique itself had the ability to conceal one's cultivation base. As long as one cultivated the primordial technique, one's cultivation base would be difficult to detect. Even a great carefree realm expert would find it difficult to see through a cultivator who cultivated the primordial technique. The primordial skills was created by him, so it was inevitably incomplete. Therefore, it did not have the function of concealing his cultivation level. Now, Zhuowen planned to cultivate in seclusion, and his original body planned to completely perfect the primordial skills. Chapter 3479. 9 stars middle stage. While Zhuowen was in seclusion, the meeting hall of the Sorcerer Tower on Chaos Street was bustling with activity. Wu Taiji was sitting at the head of the table. Wu Xiangjuan and another expert from the Sorcerer Tribe were sitting beside him. The expert from the Sorcerer Tribe had dark skin and wrinkles all over his face. He looked like a tanned old man. He was the second in command of the Sorcerer Tower, Wu Yangshua. He was second only to Wu Taiji in the Sorcerer Tower. Wu Xiangjuan turned around and whispered to Wu Taiji, "Taiji, in the Desolation Street, the Corpse Ghost Race, Space and Time Beast Race, Dragon Race, Black Tiger Race, Phoenix Race, and Merman Race's primal ancestor level experts are all here." Wu Taiji frowned and asked, "What about the Moon Wolf Tribe, Nine-Tailed Fox Tribe, and Giant Turtle Tribe?" Wu Xiangjuan shook her head and smiled bitterly. "The ancestors from the 3 tribes rejected our invitation. They don't plan to join forces with us to capture Zhuowen." Wu Taiji snorted, but he felt helpless. The 3 tribes were part of the 10 great tribes, after all. Their foundations couldn't be underestimated. Moreover, they weren't vassals of the Sorcerer Tower. He didn't have the authority to force the 3 tribes to join forces with them to capture Zhuowen. The ancestors from the Ghoul Tribe, Space-Time Beast Tribe, Dragon Tribe, Black Tiger Tribe, Phoenix People, and Mermaid Tribe had all accepted Wu Taiji's invitation. It was mainly because many of their descendants in the Chaos Heaven domain had been killed or destroyed by Zhuowen. Their grudges were not small. After knowing that the Sorcerer Tower was going to deal with Zhuowen and Zhuowen's subordinates, they all expressed their willingness to help. Of course, Wu Taiji was smart. He knew that the grudges between Zhuowen and the 6 tribes wouldn't be enough to make the 6 tribes do their best. Therefore, he also said that if they could capture Zhuowen together, he would be willing to give them Bing Hui's Heaven Breaker technique for them to study. It was because of this condition that the ancestors came out of seclusion and expressed their willingness to help Wu Taiji capture Zhuowen. "Everyone, thank you for accepting my invitation to come to the Sorcerer Tower. I am extremely grateful." Wu Taiji stood up and nodded slightly to the crowd. Everyone in the hall also nodded with respect. Tower Master Wu is too polite. The Wizard Tower's matter is everyone's matter. Zhuowen has indeed gone too far, and he should be punished by everyone. Yes, I have long disliked you, Zhuowen. Back then, you actually used the alias of Long when to kill many of our merfolk experts in Sorcerer God City. In the hall, the ancestors of the various races were united against a common enemy. They all expressed their anger towards Zhuowen and wished they could tear Zhuowen into pieces. Wu Taiji smiled calmly. He knew that these people were just putting on an act. What they really cared about was the extreme purple spiritual art that Bing Hui might bestow upon him. Tower Lord Wu, after Zhuowen killed Wu Juanhao, it's impossible for him to appear so brazenly. He must have gone into hiding. How are you going to find Zhuowen? The Phoenix clan ancestor was very calm as he asked in a low voice. You don't have to worry about that. I can find Zhuowen's tracks. However, I want to see everyone's sincerity first. Wu Taiji said calmly. Hee, Tower Master Wu, what do you need us to do? Just tell us as long as we can help. We definitely won't refuse. The Corpse Race's ancestor, said calmly. Wu Taiji smiled, faintly. It's very simple. Each of you must send at least 1/3 blight expert. The moment he said that, the pupils of the 6 ancestors in the hall shrunk, and their eyes flashed. Third blight experts were definitely one of the peak experts in their factions. There were very few of them in their factions, only 1 or 2. Wu Taiji actually wanted them to send one of them. His appetite wasn't small. Tower Master Wu, aren't you placing too much importance on that, Zhuowen? You actually need so many third blight experts. The dragon race's ancestor frowned. He felt that Wu Taiji was making a mountain out of a molehill. The other ancestors in the hall were also surprised. They also felt that Wu Taiji was making a mountain out of a molehill. Everyone, our Wu Tower's Wu Juanhao, right? He brought 2 second blight experts to kill Zhuowen, but he was instantly killed. What you don't know is that this child has an extremely powerful divine soul attack. Wu Juanhao wasn't prepared and was instantly killed by this child. Wu Taiji said solemnly, "What?" Wu Juanhao was instantly killed by a divine soul attack. Everyone in the hall was shocked. They all knew that Wu Juanhao was killed by a nameless rogue cultivator, but they didn't expect him to be instantly killed by a divine soul attack. This made everyone's expression turn serious. Even Wu Juanhao was instantly killed. If a third blight expert wasn't prepared, he would at least be heavily injured. Do you still think it's appropriate to only send 1/3 blight expert? Wu Taiji sneered. However, you don't have to worry. My Wu Tower has a secret technique to defend against divine soul attacks. When the time comes, I will teach the secret technique to the people you send to guard against Zhuowen's divine soul attack. Wu Taiji paused for a moment before speaking again. His words put everyone at ease. Good. The Phoenix people are willing to send a third blight expert. The Phoenix people's ancestor was the first to agree. The corpse race is also willing to send a third blight expert. The dragon race as well. In the hall, the ancestors of the 6 races all agreed to send a third blight expert. Wu Taiji smiled when he saw that no one objected. Time gradually passed. Zhuowen had been sitting cross-legged in the cave for more than a month. During this time, his human body had been perfecting the primordial mantra. After all, perfecting a cultivation technique was much easier than creating one. Therefore, Zhuowen didn't spend too much time perfecting the primordial chaos technique. He had basically perfected the primordial chaos technique within a month. The human body's aura had become ethereal and hazy because of the primordial mantra. Most cultivators couldn't see through the cultivation of the human body. The human body in white slowly opened his eyes. His eyes were bursting with joy. The clone has completely refined the Tianwu Gu worm and the Shibai Gu worm. Now it's about to break through. Speaking of this, the human body waved his right hand and a clone in black appeared beside him. At this moment, the clone's aura was very powerful and constantly rising. It was very terrifying. The clone nodded at the human body and left the cave. He directly entered the depths of the black hole in the god-slaying land to begin his tribulation. It had to be said that after the Panga's sacred body reached the 9-star level, the tribulation was very terrifying. The energy of each tribulation could easily tear apart a first blight expert and severely injure a second blight cultivator. However, the Pangu's sacred body was very extraordinary. Especially after reaching the 9-star level, his physical body emitted a dazzling light like a gem. It seemed to have undergone a qualitative leap. Although the tribulation was terrifying, part of it was absorbed by the black hole, and the other part was easily withstood by his physical body. He wasn't affected at all. Chapter 3480. encirclement, and suppression. The doppelganger's eyes were bright. His whole body was emitting a dazzling light that was hard to look at. In particular, that terrifying aura was like a storm that swept through the earth as it suddenly spread out. Instantly, the surrounding starry sky emitted continuous banging sounds that were extremely ear-piercing. The doppelganger was wearing a black robe. The strong wind blew and flapped loudly. The original body stood on a meteorite outside the black hole. He looked at the doppelganger in the depths of the black hole and smiled happily. The Pangu's sacred body at the middle stage of the Nine Stars realm was extraordinary. He was no weaker than a top cultivator at the peak of the third decay. When the original body and the doppelganger merged into one, even a top cultivator at the peak of the third decay would be no match for him. The doppelganger has finally merged the Tianwu Gu worm and the Shebi Gu worm. Now I can go to the nightmare abyss to find the Ozi Gu worm. Zhuowen muttered to himself. He put the original body into the macro world. His doppelganger turned into a stream of light and flew toward the nightmare abyss. The nightmare abyss happened to be in the opposite direction of the god-killing land. It was the other border of the heaven-accessing realm. The nightmare abyss was not like the god-killing land. It was more dangerous than the god-killing land. However, the chances of finding treasures were also very high. Therefore, this place had always been popular. According to the Jade Slip, the place where the body of ancestor wizard Ozi was stored was in the deepest part of the nightmare abyss. It was called the Nightmare Nunnery. It was said that the Nightmare Nunnery was the most mysterious place in the nightmare abyss. Very few cultivators in the heaven-accessing realm could enter the Nightmare Nunnery. Of course, even if a cultivator was lucky enough to enter, he or she would not be able to come out. 3 Pure Ones and Wu Taiji had both arrived at the Nightmare Nunnery. They had a tacit understanding, but they never entered the Nightmare Nunnery. No one knew why. Some people guessed that there was a great terror in the Nightmare Nunnery. Even top cultivators like 3 Pure Ones and Wu Taiji, who stood at the peak of the heaven-accessing realm, did not dare to enter the Nightmare Nunnery easily. In short, the Nightmare Nunnery was rumored to be a magical place. Many cultivators who searched for treasures in the Nightmare Abyss stayed away from the Nightmare Nunnery. They knew their place. When Zhuowen arrived at the outskirts of the Nightmare Abyss, he immediately saw many cultivators flying in groups of 2s and 3s. At the entrance of the Nightmare Abyss stood a gigantic stone statue of a woman. This female stone statue had a human body and a snake tail. Its eyes were very strange. It was clearly carved out of stone, but when one looked into its eyes, one would see a 7-colored light. A large area behind the female statue was shrouded in a thick black fog, making it impossible to see what was inside. At this moment, an endless stream of people had gathered in front of the female stone statue. There were both humans and outsiders. They were all waiting outside the stone statue. Some were whispering to each other. Some were looking around. When Zhuowen arrived here, he did not attract anyone's attention. However, he frowned. The moment he arrived here, an ominous premonition arose in his mind, and his eyelids kept twitching. What happened? Zhuowen's face was a little ugly. His intuition had always been quite accurate. This time, his eyelids were twitching so fast. Something bad must have happened. He spread out his divine sense and carefully inspected his surroundings, but he didn't find anything out of the ordinary. Moreover, before he left, he had completely changed his appearance. Especially the perfected primordial mantra, it could perfectly conceal his aura and cultivation. Even the 3 Pure Ones and Wu Taiji would find it difficult to see through his disguise. It might be an illusion. Zhuowen comforted himself and began to line up at the back of the line, planning to enter the Nightmare Abyss. The way to enter the nightmare abyss was very simple. That was to look into the 7 colored eyes of the female stone statue and persist for 3 seconds before being teleported into the nightmare abyss. 3 seconds was very short, but many cultivators couldn't hold on. Often, after 1 second, these cultivators would bleed from their orifices. Zhuowen was surprised. From the discussions of the surrounding cultivators, Zhuowen knew that the female stone statue's eyes had a mysterious power that restrained the soul. If the soul wasn't strong enough, it would easily collapse. In light cases, one would bleed from their orifices and faint. In heavy cases, one would directly die. As the cultivators at the entrance continued to enter the nightmare abyss, the line soon reached Zhuowen. However, his heart was beating very fast, and the ominous feeling was getting stronger. Finally, when it was his turn to arrive at the entrance of the stone statue, the space around him suddenly exploded. A terrifying energy shot out from the depths of the starry sky beside the stone statue and struck Zhuowen's chest like an arrow that had been released from a bow. Bam! Zhuowen reacted very quickly. He kicked off with his right foot and avoided being struck in a vital area. However, he was still affected by the burst of energy and was struck in the shoulder. Zhuowen groaned in pain and hurtled back in retreat. He was almost out of the range of the nightmare abyss. The cultivators behind Zhuowen didn't even have time to react before they were all blasted into smithereens by the burst of energy. Meanwhile, the cultivators further away were able to evade in time and only suffered light injuries. They managed to escape from the range of the burst of energy in time and luckily escaped with their lives. What's going on? A half-step, heaven-crushing stage cultivator suddenly attacked. What a terrifying burst of energy! Only a half-step heaven-crushing stage cultivator would be able to unleash such power. Many cultivators had already retreated far away. They were all drenched in cold sweat as they looked at the terrifying scene around the stone statue and started to discuss spiritedly. Zhuowen steadied himself. He was standing on a meteor in space. A large wound had been blasted open on his shoulder blade, and blood was dripping from it. At this moment, he was looking at the space in front of him with a dark expression. There, a figure slowly stepped out from the depths of space and landed beside the stone statue. This figure was very tall, at least 3 feet tall. His skin was unbelievably pale, and he was bald. Zhuowen immediately recognized that this figure was a sorcerer tribe cultivator. Moreover, this sorcerer tribe cultivator's aura was extremely powerful. It was much more powerful than Wu Juanhao's. This was definitely a 3rd blight cultivator. Heavens! That's the Grand Elder of the Sorcerer Tower, Wu Haori. He's a genuine 3rd blight cultivator. Why is he here? The moment the crowd saw the bald man, it immediately caused an earth-shattering uproar. Bang! 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 The moment this bald man appeared, 6 huge black vortexes appeared in the space around the stone statue. Then 6 figures with auras no weaker than this bald man appeared. Corpse ghost races, Shijin, time and space beast races, Pu Feihong, dragon races, Brother Hao, black tiger races, Hu Guanyu, phoenix peoples, Feng Lutian, merman races, Longxing Heavens. They're all 3rd blight cultivators. They're all famous and terrifying existences on the desolate street. Why are there so many 3rd blight cultivators here? Could it be that they're all here to kill that youth? Who is he? The spectators all came to their senses and looked at Zhuowen. Everyone couldn't help but guess Zhuowen's identity. Chapter 3481. Who do you think you are? Guys, we have never met before, but you suddenly attacked me and wanted to kill me. What do you mean? Zhuowen's eyes were gloomy and his face was pale. Wu Haori sneered and stared at Zhuowen. What do I mean? Don't you know? You have killed so many people of my sorcerer tribe. Today, I am here to avenge them. I don't understand what you mean. Zhuowen was slightly shocked. He knew that Wu Heiori probably already knew that he was Zhuowen. However, he was puzzled as to how they had found him. He had hidden himself very well and had almost changed his appearance. However, Wu Heiori and the others had a tacit understanding. It was as if they had been lying in ambush here for a long time, as if they had completely grasped his every move. It doesn't matter if you don't understand. You just need to know that you are going to die today. Corpse Jean of the Ghoul clan, whose body was like a mummy, had golden hair. At this moment, he was speaking in a sinister voice. His cold eyes were staring at Zhuowen with disdain. After Corpse Jean finished speaking, he said to Wu Heiori and the other 6 people, "Guys, you don't have to do anything to deal with this nonentity. Watch how I kill him." Hearing Corpse Jin's words, Wu Heiori and the others all nodded and looked at Zhuowen mockingly. Obviously, they didn't take Zhuowen seriously at all. They felt that any one of them was enough to kill Zhuowen thousands of times. There was no need for them to join forces to kill Zhuowen. "Zhuowen, you are very bold. When you were in the untainted heavenly realm, you killed many people of my Ghoul clan. Now that you are in the heaven accessing place, you are still so arrogant. You are really overestimating yourself." Corpse Jean attacked. The terrifying momentum of the third blight surged out like a wave. The surrounding starry sky began to distort and collapse under this influence. Corpse Jean punched out. Wherever it passed, the starry sky exploded. Countless energy dissipated and splashed out like a broken water ball. Zhuowen's eyes were cold and a little dignified. This Corpse Jean was very strong. Even among the third blight experts, he was very strong. He was much stronger than Wu Juanhao. If he used the Soul Sword Essence, he could kill Corpse Jean instantly. However, the conditions for using the Soul Sword Essence were too harsh. Since he had just used it, he had not been able to condense a new One Soul Sword Essence. Fortunately, after his avatar absorbed the soul and corpse goo worms, it had absorbed Tian Wu and Shibai. Corpse Jean 2 R. Zhuowen. Boom. Zhuowen punched out as well. His fist aura was monstrous, and it emitted a sparkling and translucent light as if it was carved from jade. Everywhere his fist aura passed, space would continuously collapse. It was truly too terrifying. In just an instant, the 2 fists collided. Then, a black crack that was several feet wide appeared in the chaotic starry sky, like a black crescent moon. Bang, bang, bang. In an instant, Zhuowen and Corpse Jean collided. The eruption of energy was too terrifying. The starry sky exploded, and the energy ripples spread out in all directions like a wave. Many cultivators were shocked when they saw the terrifying energy ripples. They felt that it was unbelievable. They knew how powerful Corpse Jean was. After all, he was a veteran third blight expert. But Zhuowen was too powerful. It made them feel incredulous. The battle between Zhuowen and Corpse Jean was too terrifying. Judging from the current situation, Corpse Jean was at a disadvantage. Corpse Jean's face was ugly. He was really shocked. He stared at the young man, who was throwing out terrifying punches. He really did not expect that Zhuowen's strength could be so strong. Zhuowen was even stronger than him. He was only at a disadvantage. How can this Zhuowen's strength be so excessive? He didn't even use the so-called soul attack. The eyes of Wu Heiori and the others who were watching from the side flashed. They were full of surprise and doubt. They felt that it was strange. From the information they received, they knew that Zhuowen's soul attack was terrifying, but his physical strength could only be regarded as average. He was not at all comparable to a third blight expert. But now, the strength that Zhuowen displayed was too terrifying. He was not inferior to a third blight cultivator at all. Even a strong cultivator, like Corpse Gene, was suppressed. Die! Corpse Gene felt ashamed. He suddenly exhaled, and in his lungs there was a green-gold gas. The green-gold gas floated out quickly, like a giant dragon. It cut through the starry sky and rushed toward Zhuowen. That's the poisonous gold gas. That's Corpse Jin's strongest trump card. Back then, he relied on that poisonous qi to directly cut off the head of an expert of the same level. It's terrifying. It's simply unstoppable, said Wu Heori fearfully. Whoosh, whoosh. The green gold gas was very fast. In an instant, it swept in front of Zhuowen with a terrifying power. Zhuowen punched out and landed on the green gold gas. Suddenly, he felt as if his right fist had fallen into a swamp. The speed of his punch suddenly became much slower. Moreover, Zhuowen found that there were terrifying poisonous bubbles erupting from the green gold gas. These poisonous bubbles began to evaporate and rise. Eventually, they burst, and a terrifying poisonous gas escaped and drilled into Zhuowen's right arm. In just an instant, Zhuowen's right arm showed signs of ulceration. Zhuowen frowned slightly. He activated the Pangu's sacred body, and his whole body erupted with bright crystal light. The ulceration on his arm was immediately stopped by him. However, the green gold gas was increasing. It spread out in an instant and enveloped Zhuowen's entire body. Zhuowen immediately used the mysterious light of creation. His body was covered by a layer of light, which completely resisted the spreading green gold gas. Boom! At the same time, Zhuowen made a gesture with his right hand and used the sky-splitting blade. Terrifying air blades blasted out toward Shijin. Shijin's face changed slightly. He hurriedly defended himself. Unfortunately, the sky-splitting blade was too sharp, and there were too many of them. His right hand was hit by a mist sky-splitting blade. It exploded into a cloud of blood mist and completely dissipated. Shijin screamed, and his face turned pale. He hurriedly retreated. Zhuowen would not give Shijin a chance. He directly chased after Shijin and suppressed him. Shijin was injured. At this moment, his strength was suppressed too much. He could barely resist Zhuowen's attacks. The injuries on his body were getting more and more serious. Damn it, you ant! Shijin was furious. Shijin was shocked and angry at the same time. He was really aggrieved. He was actually suppressed by Zhuowen like this, and he had no power to fight back. You keep saying that I'm an ant, but now you've been beaten by me to the point that you're worse than a dog. Who do you think you are? Zhuowen sneered again and again, but his attacks became more and more ruthless. He wanted to completely cripple Corpse Gold. Do it! Wu Heori saw that Shijin was being suppressed by Zhuowen and even showed signs of dying. He could not wait any longer. He rushed out like a sun and rushed toward Zhuowen. On the other hand, Pu Feihong of the Space-Time Beast clan, Brother Hao of the Dragon clan, Hu Guanyu of the Black Tiger clan, Feng Lutian of the Phoenix clan, and Long Xing of the Merfolk clan looked at each other, and then they very tacitly split into 5 directions, surrounding Zhuowen and charging towards him. Zhuowen, you're dead. Chapter 3482. Kill you? In Shijin's opinion, Zhuowen would definitely die if Wu Heori and the other 5 joined the fray, and he would be saved. Right now, he was both fearful and afraid of Zhuowen. Zhuowen's strength was beyond his imagination. It was too terrifying. He was really afraid that if this continued, he would really fall in Zhuowen's hands. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. He just glanced at Wu Heori and the others who were rushing over. Shijin, do you really think I can't kill you? Before they get here, I'll kill you. Zhuo coldly laughed as a terrifying light exploded out from his body. Soon after, the light formed an enormous figure that seemed to connect the heavens and the earth in the air behind Zhuo. This figure was simply too tall. It was simply too dazzling in the chaotic starry sky. Panga's power suppress. Zhuo put his palms together and chanted. His right hand suddenly hit Shijin's body. Rumble! Panga's shadow moved in the same way as Zhuo. Its huge palm hit Shijin. Shijin's pupils shrank. He felt the shadow of death from Panga's shadow. He knew that if this palm landed on his body, he might really die. Shijin started to burn his essence blood. He screamed and wanted to escape. Unfortunately, no matter how fast he was not as fast as Panga's shadow. Rumble! Panga's shadow finally hit Shijin, and a terrifying and dazzling light burst out. Then, Shijin screamed, and his body was destroyed. However, as Shijin's body was destroyed, it reformed. His broken body was constantly repairing itself, and he quickly escaped from Panga's shadow. Zhuo's eyes were full of mockery. He hit Shijin again and destroyed his body. It had to be said that a third blight powerhouse was really difficult to kill. Their divine souls were much stronger than ordinary cultivators. As long as their divine souls were not destroyed, their body could quickly repair itself. Shijin's body was destroyed and reborn again and again. When Shijin's body was destroyed for the 7th time, Wu Heori and the others arrived. "Brother Wu, save me. My divine soul is about to be destroyed." Shijin's eyes lit up with hope when he saw Wu Heori rushing over. His half-recovered body hurriedly moved towards Wu Heori. Wu Heori nodded and went straight to Shijin, intending to save him. But soon, Wu Heori's expression changed. Panga's silhouette abruptly kicked Wu Heori's body. Wu Heori formed a fist with both hands and punched out. It exploded with a bright light like a blazing sun, and its power was terrifying. Bang! Wu Heori's strength was extraordinary. The fist print that he blasted out actually caused the right foot of the Panga shadow to completely stop. He let out a muffled groan and involuntarily retreated. "Corpse Gold, you should just die. No one can save you." Zhuo's voice was like the might of the heavens. He unleashed another palm strike, and the Corpse Gold screamed as it was destroyed once again. This time, after Shijin's body was destroyed, it was no longer repaired. His divine soul had been annihilated, and he had completely died. When the surrounding people saw this scene, they all sucked in a breath of air. They only felt that it was unbelievable. Corpse Gold had died just like that. This was a third blight powerhouse. Did Zhuo have to be so powerful? How dare you kill Shijin? Wu Heori and the other 5 people stopped not far from where Shijin died. Their eyes bulged as they stared at Zhuo. They were also deeply shocked. They really didn't expect Shijin to kill Zhuo just like that. This was too unexpected. "Haha, don't worry. I'm not only going to kill Shijin, but I'm also going to kill all of you." Zhuo sneered as he looked at Wu Heori and the others. His eyes were full of mockery and murderous intent. "You're really arrogant. How dare you threaten to kill all of us? You're simply courting death." Wu Heori was furious. He took a step forward, and his body erupted with a terrifying golden light. He was like a sun that rose to the highest point in the sky, emitting a light that was difficult to look at. Pu Feihong from the Space-Time Beast clan, Brother Hao from the Dragon clan, Hu Guanyu from the Black Tiger clan, Feng Lutian from the Phoenix people, and Long Xing from the Mermaid clan followed closely behind. They all erupted with a terrifying aura. A total of 6 third blight powerhouses attacked at the same time. The aura that they condensed was too terrifying. It was as if they could crush everything around them. The surrounding space seemed to be collapsing. Arrogant? I'm a man of my word. Zhuowen sneered. With a wave of his sleeve, his original body that had been sitting in the great world flew out and merged with his avatar. Suddenly, Zhuowen's entire body emitted a blazing purple light. He began to operate the primordial chant. His entire body exuded a purple aura, like a carefully carved purple jade. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, Wu Haori's group of 6 had already arrived in front of the Panga's shadow. They all erupted with their strongest attacks and bombarded the Pangu's shadow. Thunderous booms could be heard without an end. The joint attack launched by the 6 of them was way too terrifying. A sky-shattering, earth-shattering power erupted from Pangu's silhouette. The Panga's shadow was constantly resisting, but it couldn't withstand this terrifying attack. After all, this was the joint attack of 6 Third Blight powerhouses. This attack was enough to instantly kill a Third Blight powerhouse like Shurjin. Puchi, Panga's silhouette was torn apart, and a large hole appeared in the chaotic starry sky, where Panga's silhouette was. It looked like a large black crack on a piece of cloth. This kid is dead for sure. Wu Haori and the others stopped not far away. When they saw the Panga's shadow being torn apart, they didn't continue to attack. In their opinion, under their joint attack, Zhuowen would be seriously injured at best, and at worst, he would directly die. Pangu's silhouette was collapsing, and Zhuowen's silhouette was blurry in the collapsing Pangu silhouette, seeming a bit hazy. I'll go in and take a look. Merman Longxing's eyes flickered. Without waiting for Wu Haori and the others to agree, he rushed into the collapsing Panga's shadow. Wu Haori and the others frowned. Longxing was so anxious. Clearly, it was because of Zhuowen's spirit ring. This kid's cultivation wasn't high, but he was so strong. He must have a big secret. Thinking of this, Wu Haori and the others quickly followed. They didn't want to fall behind. Longxing's speed was very fast. He took the lead and rushed to the place where the Panga shadow was collapsing. At this moment, the Panga shadow had completely collapsed. Longxing was the first to arrive. He immediately discovered the figure that was sitting cross-legged under the collapsing Panga's shadow, emitting purple light. This guy actually didn't die. Longxing was stunned. He stared at the figure below the Panga's shadow in disbelief. Chapter 34, 83. Terrifying strength, damn it. Longxing's expression changed when he saw the approaching fist. He cursed under his breath and formed a seal with both hands. Behind him, a boundless wave of water appeared. The waves were too turbulent. With a terrifying aura, they rushed over and drowned Zhuowen in an instant. However, the wave didn't last for long. A purple light instantly died, the wave a mysterious purple. The purple light became more and more intense. In the end, the wave was blasted away by the terrifying energy, revealing a terrifying phantom of a fist. Longxing's pupils shrank. He didn't expect his attack to be broken so easily. However, Longxing didn't panic. He blasted out another palm strike. At the same time, he retreated and planned to join Wu Haori and the others to kill Zhuowen together. Puff! But soon, Longxing realized in despair that when his palm strike touched Zhuowen's fist, which was spewing out purple light, it collapsed like a chicken and exploded into a cloud of blood mist. What kind of power is this? Longxing let out a blood-curdling scream. After his palm force was broken and his right palm exploded into a bloody mist, he sensed a very mysterious and powerful force coming from Zhuowen's fist force, following his arm and entering his body. Moreover, this power was very violent. It stirred up the wind and clouds in his body and wreaked havoc. What shocked him even more was that the Heaven's Way energy in his body couldn't contain this power. Instead, it was dispersed by this mysterious power. Bang! 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 Long Xing's acupuncture points were bursting with blood mist. He kept retreating. When he took the last step, his body collapsed. What's wrong with this guy? How did he suddenly become so powerful? Wu Heiori had just arrived when he saw Long Xing's miserable state. Everyone was shocked. Although Zhuowen was powerful, he had been entangled with Shi Jin for a long time. In the end, he used Panga's sacred aura to kill Shi Jin. But now, Zhuowen didn't use Panga's sacred aura. Instead, he used a simple punch to break Long Xing's body. The contrast between before and after was too great. Be careful. This person has a very strange power. Once you come into contact with it, your meridians and flesh will immediately collapse. Even if you use all your Heaven's Way energy, it's difficult to stop this power from invading. Not far away, Long Xing's body was gradually recovering. His face was very pale and bloodless. At this moment, he was glaring fiercely at Zhuowen. In addition to hatred, there was also a trace of fear. Zhuowen glanced at Long Xing. He already knew that third blight cultivators weren't so easy to kill. He had to kill them a few more times before he could completely destroy the third blight cultivator's body and soul. This was the advantage of third blight cultivators. Their bodies and souls were connected, and they complemented each other. This kid is a bit strange. His aura isn't strong. His cultivation must be lower than ours, but I can't sense his specific cultivation, Wu Heiori said with a solemn look. The combat power Zhuowen displayed just now made him start to take him seriously. He knew that Zhuowen's strength was probably above the information they received. Let's attack together. This kid must have a big secret. If we fight him alone, I'm afraid it won't be easy to take him down. Pu Feihong of the space-time beast race said coldly. The space-time around him was distorted and emitted powerful space-time power. He was more and more certain that Zhuowen had a great treasure on him. His eyes were full of greed. He couldn't wait to take down Zhuowen. Wu Heiori and the others had the same thought. Now, they were looking at Zhuowen as if they were looking at a huge treasure. They knew how strong Zhuowen was, but they were also confident in themselves. The 6 of them combined were enough to take down Zhuowen. Brother Pu is right. Let's attack together. Let's take him down quickly and stop dilly-dallying. Wu Heiori was the first to agree. The other 4 experts also agreed. They didn't want to delay and hoped to take down Zhuowen as soon as possible. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In an instant, Wu Heiori and the others no longer hesitated. They rushed toward Zhuowen and completely surrounded Zhuowen. Long Xing, who had his body destroyed by Zhuowen's punch, didn't want to be outdone. He quickly adjusted his state and followed closely behind. However, Long Xing didn't dare to take the lead anymore. He had suffered a great loss just now, so he was much more cautious now. Wu Heiori was like a sun. His body was emitting a dazzling golden light. When he punched out, it was as if countless stars had exploded. Boom! Wu Heiori attacked with his full strength. The golden light exploded, and the surrounding space exploded. The momentum was terrifying. Zhuowen didn't fight Wu Heiori head-on. Instead, he used the primordial chant. Purple light flickered around his body, and he dodged Wu Heiori's attack like a bolt of purple lightning. The primordial chant was a comprehensive cultivation technique. Not only was it a cultivation technique, but it also included attack, defense, movement, and many other comprehensive cultivation techniques. As for the primordial grand mist technique that he had created himself, it naturally continued the characteristics of the primordial grand mist technique. It was a top-notch cultivation technique that was comprehensive and comprehensive. Moreover, it was a peerless cultivation technique that transcended this universe. The space-time beast races Pu Feihong, the dragon races Long Haoga, the black tiger races Hu Guanyu, and the phoenix people's Feng Lutian also attacked. Their attacks were extremely terrifying. However, Zhuowen dodged all these attacks. His charge didn't slow down. His target was the cowering Long Xing, who was at the back. F***CK. Long Xing saw that Zhuowen didn't fight Wu Heiori and the others head-on. Instead, he went straight for him. He couldn't help but curse inwardly. He wanted to retreat without thinking. He was really scared by Zhuowen. Long Xing retreated quickly, but Zhuowen was even faster. He was as fast as lightning, and in an instant he appeared in front of Long Xing. You can't escape. Today, I, Zhuowen, want to kill. Sure, Jean will be the first, and you will be the second. Don't be too hasty, one at a time. Zhuowen said as he punched out. Purple light filled the sky. Long Xing's face was gloomy. Zhuowen's speed was so fast that it shocked him. He could actually break through the encirclement of Wu Heiori and the others in an instant and rush out to kill him. Long Xing was helpless. He knew that he had to stop Zhuowen now. Puqi. Unfortunately, Long Xing's defense was like a chicken or a dog in Zhuowen's eyes. It couldn't withstand a single blow. He punched Long Xing again and smashed him into pieces. Blood mist spurted out. After Long Xing was smashed into pieces, the blood mist escaped in an instant and reformed his body hundreds of billions of miles away. However, Zhuowen's speed was too fast. Not long after he escaped, Zhuowen had already closed in and punched him again. Chapter 3484. The situation is over, damn it. How can this guy be so fast? Wu Heiori and the other four chased after Zhuowen, but they could not catch up no matter how hard they tried. They could only watch as Long Xing was beaten up again and again until he finally died. Zhuowen slowly turned around, and his gaze fell on the Phoenix people, Feng Lutian. His gaze was so sharp that Feng Lutian did not dare to look straight at it. At the same time, he felt his hair stand on end. With Shi Jin and Long Xing as examples, Feng Lutian was a little afraid of Zhuowen. He was afraid that Zhuowen would target him and kill him too. He knew very well that with Zhuowen's speed, the five of them working together would be useless. This was because they could not effectively form an encirclement to contain Zhuowen. Phoenix people, Feng Lutian, it's your turn now. After Zhuowen said that, he pounced on Feng Lutian. He was so fast that one could only see a purple shadow flashing by in the starry sky. It was impossible to see his figure clearly. Feng Lutian's hair stood on end. Without thinking, he began to retreat. Everyone moved closer to Feng Lutian. Wu Heiori's expression was ugly the moment Zhuowen swept out. He shouted and took the lead to charge at Feng Lutian. However, before they could get close to Feng Lutian, they saw a purple shadow flash past Feng Lutian's side. Then, Feng Lutian screamed and collapsed into a cloud of blood mist. By the time they were completely close to Feng Lutian, he had already been blown up 3 times. At that moment, he was struggling to reform his body. His face was pale, and his eyes were filled with fear. Let's surround Feng Lutian. We must find a chance to capture Zhuowen. Otherwise, we'll all be in danger today. Wu Heiori's eyes were solemn. Cold sweat appeared on his forehead as he shouted. Wu Heiori did not expect that the encirclement, which he thought was a sure win, would end up in such a situation. They were actually in such a passive position. Suddenly, Long Haoga, who was guarding Feng Lutian's left, let out a blood-curdling shriek. Blood sprayed out from his body as he was smashed into smithereens by a purple fist. Next was Hu Guanyu of the Black Tiger race, and Pu Fei Hong of the space-time beast race. Wu Heori's divine sense was the sharpest, and his strength was also the strongest among them. However, the moment Zhuowen's purple shadow appeared in front of him, a terrifying golden light erupted from his body and dispersed, forming a terrifying golden rain. This golden rain was very powerful and was enough to seriously injure a third blight cultivator. In this golden rain, Zhuowen's figure could not help but stagnate for a moment, and Wu Heori immediately found a flaw. "I found you! Die!" Wu Heori's eyes turned crimson. He immediately took out a golden ring and smashed it at Zhuowen. The ring shone with golden light. It was quite extraordinary, and the divine splendor it emitted illuminated the heavens. It was clear that it was a terrifying, half-step, heaven-breaking, grade divine artifact. The third level of the Yama demon diagram, Parade of 100 Ghosts, open. Zhuowen was very calm. He immediately took out the Yama demon diagram and opened the last level. This was the ultimate move of the Yama demon diagram, and it could only be used once in a lifetime. Once the third level was completely opened, the Yama demon diagram would unleash the power of a half-step, heaven-breaking, grade divine artifact. It would form a domain of 100 ghosts and completely suppress the opponent. In the third level of the Yama demon diagram, there were countless evil ghosts. They instantly rushed out of the diagram and let out ferocious and evil howls. They blocked the golden ring and formed a pitch-black domain that enveloped Wu Heori and the others. In this domain, Wu Heori and the others' vision and divine sense were completely interfered with by the ghosts. However, Zhuowen's divine sense was not affected at all. Zhuowen immediately locked onto Feng Lutian, who had just condensed his body, and gave him a punch without hesitation. Poor Feng Lutian, who had just condensed his body, was once again destroyed. He let out a mournful cry. Wu Heori and the others' divine senses were interfered with. Although they could hear Feng Liuqian's mournful cry, they could not tell the specific direction. "Let's work together and completely shatter this domain." Wu Heori shouted loudly. He took out the golden ring and continuously bombarded the domain of the Yama demon diagram. Although countless evil ghosts were annihilated like leaves being swept away by the autumn wind, there were too many evil ghosts in the Yama demon diagram. They seemed to be endless, and it was impossible to completely destroy them in a short period of time. In the domain, Feng Liuqian's tragic cries that sounded like a pig being slaughtered could be heard from time to time. Feng Lutian was indeed very miserable. He had just condensed his body, but he was immediately destroyed by Zhuowen. This repeated until he let out a final mournful cry and shouted, "Goddamn Zhuowen, I won't let you go even if I become a ghost." Then there was no more sound. He had completely fallen. Crack! The moment Feng Lutian was completely destroyed, the domain of the Yama demon diagram was finally completely shattered. Wu Heori, Long Haoga, and Hu Guanyu finally rushed out of the shattered domain of the Yama demon diagram. Feng Lutian, after the domain of the Yama demon diagram was shattered, their divine instincts immediately became clear. They immediately realized that Feng Liuqian's aura had disappeared. They knew that Feng Lutian had probably been destroyed and had completely fallen. "Sai, my most precious divine weapon was destroyed by you guys. Shouldn't you guys compensate me?" At that moment, Zhuowen's lazy voice sounded. It immediately caused Wu Heori and the other two's hair to stand on end. They could not help but retreat by a large distance. They looked at Zhuowen, who came out with the broken Yama demon diagram in fear. Zhuowen looked at the broken Yama demon diagram and sighed in his heart. The Yama demon diagram was very powerful. Although it was only a peak ascending heaven-level divine weapon, it could unleash the power of a half-step, heaven-piercing divine weapon. The power of the Yama demon diagram did not disappoint him. However, it could only be used once. After that, the divine weapon would be completely destroyed and could not be used again. Brother Zhua, this has nothing to do with the Black Tiger tribe. It was the sorcerer tribe who gathered us to surround and annihilate you. I'll take my leave first. Hu Guanyu cupped his fists at Zhuowen from afar and ran away without saying a word. He ran very quickly and did not hesitate at all. Our dragon tribe is also a victim. We were bewitched by the sorcerer tribe. I hope that Brother Zhua can see through everything. Long Haoge only said this sentence. Without even saying goodbye, he fled in another direction. You guys, Wu Heori was flustered and exasperated. He was just about to berate Long Haoge and Hu Guanyu. Unfortunately, the two had already run away. How could they hear Wu Heori's curses? Zhuowen did not chase after Long Haoge and Hu Guanyu. He would settle the grudges between the two in the future. Right now, he was not in a hurry. Wu Taiji, this old fogey, his methods are not small. He actually found out my whereabouts in advance and ambushed me here. Tell me, what method did that old fogey use? Zhuowen rubbed his right hand and looked at Wu Heori indifferently. His powerful aura had already locked onto Wu Heori. Cold sweat had already appeared on Wu Heori's forehead. He was very clear that his speed could not compare to Zhuowen's. Running away now was useless and would only make him more passive. Zhuowen, you are indeed strong, but compared to my Wu Lu, you are still an ant. If you let me go, I will plead for you to the Tower Lord. Wu Heori calmed down and planned to raise conditions with Zhuowen. You want to raise conditions with me. You don't have the qualifications now. Zhuowen sneered, took a step forward, and rushed towards Wu Heori.